All right. I think I'm already live. I don't think there was a countdown. I think I did it wrong. So, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Trap Talk, the coolest reptile network, podcast network. We got my good dear friend Dave that sometimes hosts. This is MJ's podcast, of course. And now he has this diverse group of people that are helping run and host certain episodes. So I'm going to be doing hognose snakes and colubrids. And so that's why I'm here. And definitely want to give a big shout out. The first thing I want to do is talk about USARK. And, USARK is definitely, everybody here I think knows, a great organization to support. They work very hard and they're very diligent on terminating or finding laws that are trying to be passed that would affect reptile ownership. And USARK has been doing a phenomenal job of that. They have like an extremely high success percentage of, nipping these possible, bills into bud before they progress. And the sponsor today is actually somebody I know, the Reptile Super Show. Rami runs Reptile Super Shows. So one of my favorite expos to go to. I was just there this January. I won't be there for the summer one. I would like to, but I can only do so many shows. And the Super Show is a really awesome show. Actually, this past January, the show that just that I just did was, I think, one of their most, one of their shows with the highest level of traffic. There were a lot of people there. There's a lot of cool people there. And so I'm going to get into it today. It's just me doing this podcast. I already kind of mentioned that earlier, but I think a lot of people here, I'm going to go to the comments too. But a lot of people probably are aware that MJ is doing podcasts every day of the week. And he's not hosting all of them. He's having different breeders of his choice that he thought would be good to help host this show. And so this is my first time. And so there's a few topics and things I wanted to talk about. And well, the first thing is, if anybody wants to jump in and, start a topic, just put it right in the comments. And I'd love to, talk to everybody and basically get everybody included in this podcast, in this conversation. And future podcasts that I do or I host, I will definitely probably, have guests. So I'm going to read some right now. All right. So far, nobody's really brought any talking points. Well, the one thing I did want to talk about was Morph Market auctions. So Morph Market auctions is something relatively new. I've actually been participating in them, and they've actually been very fun and successful. And it's definitely been interesting, and I'm glad that Darian's kind of limited them so that there isn't too many. But the auctions, I think, I don't know if anybody wants to comment if they've participated in them, if they've had any, if they had a positive, experience with it or negative. But so far, I see mostly positives. All right, so he asked about, they're talking about their hognose double clutching. So some people, you can breed hognose relatively early. So this person's already got first clutch. I currently have a couple female hogs double clutching. How about info on double clutches? Double clutching, okay. Now, with hognose snakes, I just talked to somebody a little bit about this. This is an interesting one. Generally, when you're getting a second clutch from female Western hognose, almost every time they already have egg follicles for the second clutch stacked, and they're ovulating very shortly after that first clutch. They can be ovulating within days because if you ever been on my Instagram is JMG Reptiles. If just like my shirt, JMG Reptiles. For anybody here they may not know who I am. But sometimes on my lives and in my stories, I'll post information about my female hognose laying second clutches and how I'll give you some tips on how I get some to double clutch or what helps them to double clutch and things to look out for. The one big thing is you can really accurately predict when your female is going to lay her second clutch based off of that first clutch. So it's very important to keep notes. So I'm really big on keeping notes when it comes to breeding seasons. So there's a lot of times people keep notes for sheds, and the only time I'm, wanting to know when a hognose sheds, and this probably apply to other colubrids too, but mainly for hognose because that's what I'm, working with. But it's very, if you know when she laid her first clutch, and you have that written down, it's usually like 31, 32, 33, 34 days she's laying her second clutch. You can get very precise with it because their ovulation cycle it happens very quickly after the first clutch. A lot of times people reintroduce males and they think that reintroducing the males helping a lot. Generally, that's not the case. They're retaining sperm. I've even had females lay bad first clutches and then in their second clutch have really good fertility without even reintroducing the male. And so that's one thing that people think, like a lot of times I reintroduced the male. That's probably why. In a lot of cases, I have over the years, it's not like something I experienced like a ton, but I've experienced it many times where a female has very poor fertility or total junk fertility. And, the second clutch, the fertility is awesome. And I didn't even reintroduce the male, but she retained sperm. And what I equate it to is there's nothing wrong with that sperm. It's actually her egg follicles. So the egg follicles the second time around, her reproductive organs and the egg follicles the second time around are more healthy. And this is common with first-year breeder females, and it makes sense because what's more likely to be a healthier egg follicle, the very first ever produced ones or the second produced ones? And it's like, well, her reproductive organs have already been primed. And so it seems like the second time, the egg follicle is going to be a little more healthy and more receptive to being fertilized. That's why you can sometimes get very good fertility in your second clutch while your first clutch isn't that good. And supplementing is very important. So I did one of those things where somebody asked me a question and I go on a tangent that's related. But basically, once you breed your female, the first lock, start feeding her really good. That's the only time I'm going to tell you, and this is something I've seen through the majority of my life raising hognose. You don't want to overfeed your adult females. The only time where I say it's okay to like overfeed, and it's not considered overfeeding because it's okay to do it then, is when they're gravid, right after they bred and when they're gravid. And because they're using those nutrients to, help generate those eggs to help supply those, developing embryos with nutrients and that growing egg with nutrients. And then also supplement these second follicles, for the next clutch coming up. And so they need a lot of, nutrients and reserves for that. So you can just blast them with food. But as soon as they're done laying, you want to kind of, once they're done for the whole season, then you want to back them off once they got their weight back up. And supplementing, so I use like Bionate, Reptivite, Osteoform SA, and then Repticalcium. ZooMed's products are very good. I really like ZooMed, has their own laboratory. They test this stuff. They have, like, when you buy supplements from them, they're fresh. And ZooMed's also a big supporter of USARK. So there's lots to love about ZooMed's products and also what they stand for. And what do you consider them feeding them a lot? Adult mouse every 5 days. You could do even every 4 days. You can feed them every 4 days, but every 4 or 5 days. I mean, it's not like a big difference if you do every 5 days. You just want to make sure that meal previously is like pretty much fully digested. And you can do what I prefer is like, say if your hognose is big enough to eat 2 small adult mice, I do 2 small adult mice versus 1 big mouse because their stomach acids and their, digestive, tract has a lot easier time breaking down 2 small meals or even 3 smaller meals opposed to 1 giant one. So I hear contradicting things when it comes to like pythons and boas that you feed them 1 giant meal. I don't believe that. It's way easier for them to break down and digest 1 meal. And you can also supplement with things that help them digest and process too. Actually, I have it in a fridge. I don't have it with me, or else I'd show you. It's called NutriBac. That's the best probiotic I've used for reptiles. There's also ProBios, but I think NutriBac's worked better. And it actually, if you use NutriBac, it's funny. You put NutriBac on mice and you leave it, they turn and you just leave it, it starts to break them down. They turn into like jelly. It's almost like gummy bears. It's pretty gross. NutriBac Hip Hogs. It's here, Teresa. And Moonstone Plains is here. Susie, how you doing? When breeding, is it more important for the male morph or female morph to try and get certain morphs out of it, if that makes sense? I don't know if I didn't interpret it probably exactly the way what you meant, but it depends. Like, say if you have a female sunburst and all you have is a male het sunburst, that's the best way to go. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, say if you have 2 let's say one's a multi-het and one's a multi-visual, it doesn't matter if one's reversed. I mean, it's better to have generally the male with that's homozygous for a lot of genes so you can breed them to other females. But, you know, it's depends what you're trying to do. Really depends what you're trying to do. Like, a lot of people think it's good to have like a powerhouse male and multiple genes, but a powerhouse multiple gene female is extremely useful, especially because they're very versatile. Because that female, let's say you have like a super Arctic sable anaconda female. You could breed her to like a sunburst conda 1 year, and then the next year, say you have something new, like a new high-end gene, like a Swiss chocolate, you could throw it to that. Or if you get like, say, a PPA combo male that you really like, let's say you got like an Arctic conda PPA male, and you want to breed in the sable. Well, now instead of regular sable, you have a powerhouse super Arctic sable female or super Arctic sable anaconda female. So don't overlook high-end morph combo females. They are extremely useful for getting further in projects, and that can be applied for any species, even ball pythons, you know, like anything, you know, anything where there's a lot of like genetic morphs mutations. You know, and the cool thing is sometimes these really high-end multiple combo females, you know, you're kind of like, well, I kind of want to sell one. And so you go, I'll put it up for sale. And then if it doesn't sell, the good news is you can keep and breed it. That's what I do sometimes. Because I have like this really nice pink super Arctic sunburst. And if nobody buys it, it doesn't break my heart. You know, I want to breed it to something really cool. Okay, Kate Pettit said, I had a good experience with the auction. Was very smooth. No fuss, no muss. Yeah, the auction's been pretty good. Just as long as the people bidding on this stuff are going to honor them. That's the only thing. It's not funny, but yeah, some people are assholes that are bidding on this stuff. Because I just hear these stories of like, there's somebody winning and then they message them and then the person just goes ghost. How long do you pair for? How long should I wait after feeding females to put them back together? Okay. Well, here's the one thing. When you're pairing them and you're also feeding them simultaneously, it's very important that the male has all of the meal digested. And the reason why is the males are very likely to regurgitate if they're on a full stomach because they get very busy on the females and they're moving around a lot. And I equate it to them just moving around so much and their body, because when snakes eat, they're naturally sleeping like on average of like 20 hours a day. They're supposed to be thermoregulating and resting and then digesting that meal. They're not supposed to be flipping out on a female. You ever put a male hognose with a female and you see what they do? They start getting really busy on them sometimes. Now, if you put a male in there and he's like all placid and he doesn't care, yeah, he'll be fine on a full belly. But the point is, you don't want your males on a full belly because they'll probably regurgitate, especially if they're the ones that are very active and are in the process of trying to copulate. So, and it can happen very quickly. So, you know, I've experienced it. You know, I've had males where it's like, I was like, all right, this meal is mostly digested. And this has been years ago. So I've observed this. You put the male with the female. It looks like it's pretty much mostly digested. He's going nuts on her. And then within an hour or two, he's already regurgitated that not completely digested mouse. Now, females, on the other hand, they can be on full bellies. And I'm actually going to make a YouTube video on it. I also have a YouTube channel. Just put in JMG Reptiles. I'm going to be posting a lot more hognose and colibrid content. So if you're interested in seeing that, I'd really appreciate it. And also you can subscribe here too, because I will be here, not every Friday, but a lot of Fridays. And there's a lot of other cool hosts. Stephen Cush, personal friend of mine. We don't talk too regularly, but Stephen is extremely knowledgeable and he was a great host. And, you know, he's big into scrub pythons and pretty much knows a lot about everything. He's very, very diverse in his knowledge on species. And so getting back into it, let's see what else we can talk about. So we're talking about breeding mostly, but the one thing, yes, we're talking about the females, but the females, oh yeah, one thing, the females on a full belly is okay. And that's what I was going to go into, because I'm going to be posting a video on how to avoid your females from eating your males, and some tips I have for that. There's a few different tips. The one is, if you do pair them right away, right out of cool down, you are less likely to have a female have a strong feeding response because they are shortly out of cool down and their metabolic rates are still pretty low. And so they're not going to be as aggressive feeders. Another thing is, again, you can have the females on a full belly while you introduce the male. And the females are very unlikely to regurg, actually, unless they get real frantic. So if you have an aggressive feeder female hognose that you're worried about breeding, you can feed the hell out of her and get her completely filled up. And the only time I worry about them regurging is if the female starts flipping out when the male's starting to court her. If she's running, pacing around, and trying to get away from him, and she's really kind of like wagging her tail and she's just zipping around and she looks like restless, I'd probably separate them because she's probably going to regurgitate. But that is one big one to not get your female to eat your male, is just make sure their belly's completely full. But just the male doesn't matter. Have I had males try to eat females? Yeah, twice. Were they successful? No, it was really stupid and lame. The females were like just agitated by it. The one male had the female by the tail, and she was just like flipping out. And she was like, and the dude was going to eventually give up. So you got Darren too. He said hi. So I'm still back way up here. I'm going to go way back down. Have you ever had a juvenile or subadult go off food? Tricks to get back on. Okay, well, that's a pretty diverse question. There's a lot of approaches. If it's a juvenile, there's certain things you can do. It depends on the season. If it's kind of cold, outside, or the temperature in your rooms recently dropped, you got to remember too, in the wintertime, especially with our furnaces going, it dries the air up a lot. So then we have dropping humidity, we have lower ambient temps, we have a shorter photo period. Their body is in tune to the natural cycles to a degree, because we see this very concentrated pattern of people like, hey, my male Hognose is off food. And these fucking things start happening, especially like it starts a little bit in October, ramps up big time in November, December. Hey, my Hognose stopped eating. And then you see a big decline in like March, especially April. And I've even had baby Hognose that are like finicky feeders. And then April rolls around and the temperatures really aren't raising much in my room, but there is more natural sunlight coming in. The humidity levels do go up. And that actually is one thing too. Like the one thing you could do is, if you're going to raise temperatures, say if your temperatures are kind of low and your Hognose is off food, you can raise temperatures, but also raise humidity. And there's a big one, the reason for that. If you go and see people that find Hognose in the wild, this happens a lot. I've seen it on iNaturalist. I've actually observed it myself. The most Hognose I found in a day were 4. I found 4 Western Hognose. And you know what just happened? And it just rained. And the thing is, why would a Hognose come out when it's really hot and dry? It's a bad time to hunt for food. But if it just rained, there's going to be a lot of activity. Things are moving around. Amphibians are moving around. Everything is. And so they have a high probability of finding prey. And so, when it rains, the humidity level goes up. So when you raise temperatures, also raise humidity. You can do that through misting. You can introduce like a humid hide, but I really like to raise the environment humidity up. Like I got humidifiers for my room. And they were like, oh, this is going to work really good. And I was like, awesome. And I crank it, and it barely does shit. So I still have to go around and like mist stuff. These are actually pretty good at keeping humidity up. These are the ARS mini-series. ARS rack systems just came out with the polycarbonate clear tubs. Like I was actually the first person to buy them. I didn't want to buy them from Brian until they were ready. And then Brian's like, he goes, the last ones didn't come out. He goes, we're still trying to calibrate the machine. He goes, these are tougher because it's a very small, thin tub compared to the larger ones. So then he's like, a few days later, he goes, hey man, they came out. I was like, good. And the racks were already done. So he shipped them. And so I got these in December, but these are really good. They're very spacious, and it's for baby Hognose. They're very spacious for baby Hognose. You can raise them up in them for a long time. They fit very nicely. They have pretty good ventilation. The one thing I like is how these rack systems are an open concept. And what I'm talking about is they don't have sides and they don't have backs. So you can get airflow all throughout. And then across the top, there's a lot of airflow through there too. The air holes in the top are pretty good. And then there's, of course, the gap all around the rim. So it's pretty nice. And so do you use wild caught at all to add genes to get stronger lines? I've been wanting to do that to help strengthen lines. That's a question from Jessica. Now that's one I kind of feel that's a very good question, and that's a topic I think I could talk about for the rest of the thing, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to talk about it for a bit. I think people underestimate the genetic diversity in these captive collections. My collection alone has more genetic diversity than any locality left living in the state of Illinois. Because there's this one, it's a prairie habitat that is a remnant from a very vast prairie habitat in Illinois where Western Hognose still exists. And they actually flourish there. And there's really good fauna. It's a very good micro habitat. It's micro because everything else got turned into farmland. And the prairie there is very rich, and it's by a big slough. And so you get a lot of turtles there. There's 6-line race runners. So there's ample food and a really healthy ecosystem for Hognose to survive there. And the studies they did there are very, very interesting. I like reading them a lot. And on this one plot, they really, altogether, they observed and estimated there to be like close to 100 individuals in this locality. Okay. And then there was one adjacent property south of that was larger that they weren't surveying. That looks like, I'm sure there's Western Hognose there because I've looked at it. I'm like, they got to be there. But for whatever reason, like, I don't talk to those guys. They might keep it a secret too. Some of the stuff they don't want all, public knowledge. But from what I see, it's like they got to be there. It's perfect. It actually even looks almost a little better. And it's not much larger. And it's still a small microhabitat. So if there's even hognose there, I'd estimate that area might have around 150. And they have enough. They are going to kind of intermingle because these plots are extremely close. They're basically touching. And there's more genetic diversity in my whole entire collection. With all the locales I have, all the different morphs, the amount of hognose I have. And that's one reason I have a lot of hognoses. I like to have very strong genetic diversity. It's very hard to selectively line breed traits and to keep it very small. You can do that, though. And just buy new stock every now and then through somebody you trust. And the big thing is, too, when we're selectively line breeding, we got to be responsible with it and then pick out ones that have, good structural features and are healthy snakes. So the one thing is, it kind of gets away from people sometimes, like they're selectively line breeding, like red albino hognose, for instance. And anybody here knows what I'm talking about. And you start getting these bug-eyed, short-faced hognose. And once you get it, it's kind of hard to remove it, even with outcrossing. And it will always kind of resurface. But do I see a benefit in wild lineages being introduced into captivity? Sure. Do I think it's necessary? No, it's not. It's not with as much genetic diversity as we have. It's not necessary, but I do see it as a positive. There's tens of thousands of hognose in captivity. There's just so much. And, but the one thing is, like, it would be cool to especially get something from like a more unique locality, like maybe like South Dakota, Wyoming, areas where they're not being, a lot of the original stocks weren't collected from. Like most of the original stock of Western hognose, large portion of it, Richard Evans is a big one to start off the whole hognose community, originating hypo, and then he's the first person to get pink pastel and albino and establish them. And he really worked hard to get them into the pet trade, and he got a lot of wild caught hognose, and you get ones that were Gravid, and he'd sell captive hatched hognose, and those were all from like Lubbock localities. So the Lubbock area, if you're getting hognose from there, the most hognose in captivity, there's a large percentage that date back to the Lubbock County area. Although I'm sure Lubbock County is pretty large. So, and then I know areas like Midland, Texas have a lot, and, neighboring areas. And then also eastern New Mexico. And then you also have there was a decent amount of hognose from Colorado locales too. There actually is quite a few, but people stopped kind of talking about it once it became like illegal. And they got integrated anyway. But the majority are from like Southwest Texas. You don't have that many northern localities in captivity. But I do see it as a big positive to have them. I don't see it. It's definitely not necessary, though. It would be nice to breed if you have red albino stuff, and you could get like a reddish one from the wild, I think that would be very beneficial. And then sable or axanthic projects 3 to 4 years from now. If you're talking about that combination, people have the sable axanthics called storm cloud. And, there's a lot of things you can do with storm cloud beyond what a storm cloud is, being a double visual axanthic sable. You can incorporate Arctic, Conda. You could even put Swiss chocolate into it to maximize the black. If you made a Swiss sable axanthic, I'm sure the thing is just going to be pretty much black. Newbie question, going to get my next hognose next week, quarantine and sterilite plastic tub. My breeder says to have heat pad on bottom, but I heard someone say to keep it on the side. What is your opinion? Depends how big the heat pad is. If your container is large enough, definitely put it underneath, I would suggest. If the container is smaller and compact, being on the side isn't a bad thing because it will radiate enough heat, and then it won't be too dangerous just in case your heat tape malfunctions and, let's say, spikes to 115, 120 degrees, because I have no idea what's going on over there. You know what I mean? So I don't know what kind of heat tape you're using. I don't know what kind of thermostat. I always try to err on the side of caution, even when I'm shipping packages. Every time I ship something, I ship as I'm anticipating a 2 or 3 day delay. So that's what I would do. Are you more concerned with minimum size or age in your breeding females? Probably definitely a little. That's Cleo's Kingdom. That's a good question. Are you more concerned with minimum size or age in your breeding females? Definitely both, but which one is more important? I'd have to say size is a little more important, but the thing is, if it's super young, that could be a problem. But really, I go by the overall look, which I'm sure you do too, Cleo. You look at like if the Hognose has like a really mature looking head, has a wide anal plate, a lot of times they can be good breeders even at younger ages. Now, if you try to, a lot of it has to do too with how you feed your Hognose. If these Hognose, like this is more for people that. It's a good question. Just a topic for especially new people. I really advocate for when you're raising Hognose, don't overfeed them. Now, when they're babies and juveniles, and this goes for a lot of species, you can kind of hammer Hognose. You can hammer them pretty good. Now, you don't want them like super expanded with food constantly, but manage like very manageable like meals for them to digest like every 4 and 5 days when they're babies and juveniles is totally fine. The problem is once they get bigger, you want to cut them back. I see the most problems with people breeding female Hognose with oversized, basically females for their age. Like they got up to 250, 300 grams in like under 2 years. That's terrible. It's not good for them. A Hognose in the wild, that's 300 grams. It probably took it like 10 years, 8 years to get that big. And not all of them are even getting that big. You can find wild Hognose in the wild, they're 120, 130 grams. They're Gravid. And they do a lot better because I think their bodies, well, I don't think I know. It's mostly think because I don't have too much proof, but I have gotten some small wild-caught females that were Gravid. They never have big clutches. And even ones that people have caught, they palpate them. They don't have big clutches. They don't have the excess nutrients that we give them like in captivity. And they're breeding way smaller in the wild, and they're more mature. And they have good muscle tone and everything. Do they get, egg binding in the wild though? Actually, I seen one person post a picture when it had egg binding in the wild. So it does happen, but probably barely ever. You said you fed them yesterday. So this is Trinity. This is from talking earlier. If you fed the female, it's fine. The male though, most likely I wouldn't pair them. I'd wait till that meal's digested. Males, when they're on a full belly and they get real busy, like I'm not saying 100% of the time they regurge, but it's a large percent that they regurge. Hey, Max, is tail wagging a sign of interest from the female or the opposite? That's Kate Pettit. Well, I'll tell you one real receptive one is when the female's like slowly arching her tail. When she's like arching her tail like this and just like kind of just like, or just keeping up. I've seen somewhere they kind of like say their tail's flat like that and they just kind of like bend it, or they kind of put it completely up. And what they are, they're like opening up their cloaca, and that's the most receptive. The wagging of the tail, a lot of that seems to just be like a hormonal response to just them knowing there's a male there. And it probably just signals to the male that, hey, this is a female. Because like in the wild, when they meet up, they might, be far apart. And then when they come together and they have these strong signals, they're probably more likely to stay together. And then the female is going to try to cruise away. Male's going to court and follow her. And the female is going to go to probably like a little cavity somewhere that's very safe. And then when as the male's, courting her, as the female feels safe and stuff, she'll become more receptive and allow the male to breed. But there's a bunch of things of that. I've seen females take a while to be receptive. So the wagging the tail, now if she's wagging her tail like a ton and then like speeding off and circling a lot and getting real frantic, that's not good. It's not bad, but the thing is, like, I'll give you a good example. I had this male with this female, and I presumed they locked, but I wasn't sure. So I separated them, gave them some time off, and they seem to have lost some interest. So I'm like pretty positive they locked. That's a big one. That's a big signal that they bred. If the female and male especially are like no longer interested in one another, and they were previously. So if they're like really interested, and all of a sudden like the next day they're like not interested at all, and then you observe them not being interested throughout the day, maybe even to the next day, it's like they probably bred. And you can look for sperm stains on the male and the female as evidence. So the thing is, like, I had this pair, presumed they bred, wasn't quite sure, removed the male, fed them both. Once the male is done digesting the male so he doesn't regurge, as I kept talking about that so many times so far today, I put him back in, and this female hated him. And she was just so frantic trying to get away from him. Just like, as soon as you'd like be on her, she'd be like, boom. You could even hear her just tilling through the chips and just going like this. And she did that for a little while. I'm like, yeah, she's like very non-receptive. That means she locked. A lot of times females won't even let a male lock a second time. In some cases they do, But then I've heard people say like my Hognose is getting a lot of locks, and then they're showing me pictures and they're actually just strongly courting, and it's like you can tell when they're locked. Female's cloaca is very engorged. That hemipene expands quite a bit when it's inside them. And they stay locked for quite a while. Hognose generally locked for a few hours. 4 to 6 hours is around average, but I've had less, and I've had ones up to 13 hours. iNaturalist is very cool. Agreed, Holly. I love it, iNaturalist. I check it all the time. Is anybody here that knows me knows I really like Western Hognose snakes. I like them whether they're normal. Morphs, I really do like morphs. I love genetics a lot. But, yeah, morphs are, of course, very cool, but even if there weren't morphs, Hognose were by far my favorite snake ever, and that's why I started even getting them in the first place, just because of the way they looked. And then the more I learned about them, the more I liked. Hey Max, yeah, just listening. I'm just talking Hognose stuff and just conversing with the chat. Although the one thing is, I kind of run on a long time when I explain stuff. I like to be thorough, I guess. How many Hognose do you have total? I have a lot. Should I pair them again the day after the female eats? You can do that, Trinity. Just a male, you want to make sure he's like on an empty stomach. So Breeze Exact says pug nose. That's funny. Yeah, I like when people call them pig noses. We are in Nebraska, and they found in all counties around us except the county we're in. That's a bummer, but good news. They're in close counties nearby. But I was hoping to get out looking this spring. Yeah, you can. Western Nebraska has some very good areas for herping for them. There's this one big lake. I can't remember the name of it. That's in the southwestern corner and is right by the Colorado border. That area is pretty good, and I've actually Google mapped it. Like I Google map areas to herp for Hognose constantly. I don't go almost all the time because I have so many spots mapped out. I could probably retire and spend like a whole year. And then the Ugly Farm says Lubbock locale here, lots of hogs. Okay, and the one thing too I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, this is one big thing. I'm doing auctions right now on Morph Market because I want to talk. We were talking about the auctions, or that is a topic I want to discuss. Get some feedback on it. Everybody here seems to be that, commented like the auctions, but I'm running 2 auctions right now. And originally the one was supposed to end today. Thanks for the balloons. The one is supposed to end today, but they had like a glitch, and so they extended them 24 hours. So now the one's ending like Saturday night late. The other one's ending Sunday night. But the one that's ending Saturday night, it's an Arctic Conda and normal pair, double hat lab sable, and half the proceeds of that are going to USARK. So whatever that gets bid up to, I'm getting half to USARK. And then any super chat today, that's also going to USARK too. So every super chat here today is going to USARK to help support USARK, keep fighting for our rights to own reptiles and amphibians, as well as other exotics, and just getting the word out there, to other communities as well, that, we're not going to take the pressure from these lobbyists and these people that have interest in trying to tell other people that they can't own something, that we're passionate about. All right, future of reptile shows with all the regulations. Well, that's the whole thing, John, with USARK. So that's why I donate to USARK every year. Even when I do shipments, I do a little one every single time. It's only $1, but every shipment I'm donating like $1. Donate at the shows. Donate like if you can, if you have the money and you want to help support USARK, it's very beneficial. I personally know Phil Goss. He works really hard at conveying and breaking down the information between the reptile community and the lawyers. And since then, I'd imagine, especially from hearing Phil talk, he's definitely learned a lot of legal terminology. And so he's become a bit of a lawyer himself. But yeah, support USARK. And let's see what else we have. What is your favorite morph you have made? And why? I really like moonstone stuff, like moonstones and moonbeams. They're like a purpley blue gray hognose. It's very hard to get like bluish and purple tones on a hognose snake. Super Arctic sables too, because like the really high blue ones. But I still think I like moonbeams better. I could actually show you a moonbeam. I don't know how well it'll show up on the camera. Actually, my brightness is low on my computer too. It's kind of, now that I say, it's bothering me. Hey Siri, turn up the brightness on my computer. It doesn't work while I'm here. All right. Siri, turn up my brightness. Facts. Fast-growing females are terrible breeders. Okay, had said that. Yep. That's right, Victor. I've had girls mature under 200 grams and stay there their entire lives. Yeah, Cleo. See, and that's the thing. A lot of times those make the best breeders for long term. Like, I remember there are people like back like when I was in my like late teens and early 20s, and they would swear that female hognose only have like 4 to 5 good breeding seasons in them, and that's it. And that's like the common average. And I equate most of that to just like not portion control feeding your adults. And so I had a female, no joke, 12 consecutive successful years producing viable eggs. Now, the one year I didn't get many. I think I got like 3 babies from her. But every other year, I was getting at least like 8 or 10 babies. And she never got over like 300 grams. She was maybe like 300, like low 300 at her absolute largest. And she died when she was about 17. I got her when I was 13 years old. So I had her for quite a long time. Wild caught 140-gram female gave me 9 eggs last year. The Ugly Farm, that's pretty sweet. And that's the thing, too. You don't need big female hognose either to lay. Because I've had 180-gram females lay like 16, 17 eggs. And sometimes they double clutch. How many more eggs do you need? Like somebody, like people see those ones that lay 30 eggs. I've never gotten 30 eggs. Most I've ever gotten was 29. 17 eggs. And then the thing double clutch. How do you need more? How do you need more? Unless it's a really good project, I could see that, but you don't need more. What's your goal temperature for the warm side of the tub for gravid breeding females? Good one, Moonstone. Once they're gravid and anything, you can bump the temperatures up a bit, and because it can help their metabolic rates. And I do like 86 to 88, 89, even 90 is fine. During breeding season, I do like to keep them a little cooler. But can you describe a little more what you see, physical features wise, with mature adults? Okay. Well, let's say let's say a female is like 160 grams and she's like 20 months old. So this is a female that's coming up on close to breeding size. What I would look for is a mature looking head. So like a bigger, wider head, like not like you start looking at like an adult hognose and then look at your baby hognose. So this is a good question that Cleo's bringing up for everybody in the chat to hear and discuss if you want. You want that wide head. Not baby face. So it's kind of hard to like, there's no like actual measurement, but once you start looking at it, and you compare it, you'll start to see like some people, like they don't know. And they're like, and then as they're raising their hognose, they're like, oh, I see what you mean. Their face is looking really mature. And then look at their anal plate too. Like you want their anal plate to be pretty wide. If their anal plate is still like really small looking and narrow, they have a higher probability of becoming egg bound in some cases. So I like to see a wide anal plate, and that can even be a selectively line bred thing because as we're breeding these things, there are characteristics that can be inherited. So if you have a female, like I had this one female, she got egg bound and she had a really small anal plate, and some of her eggs survived, and I did keep some of those for breeding. And then generations on, there was other females with very small anal plates, and so kind of got away from that. And that's that's not one I've ever heard anybody else talk about, but that's not a common one. Normally the product of over selectively line breeding, while not being aware of physical structural differences that are happening, is usually the short face, sometimes even short body, bug eyes. Talked about that already a bit. Bug eyes, like cute, don't breed for them though. And what to do when the female gets frantic during breeding? Does that mean she's not ready? That's a good question, Don. In some cases, yeah. If you first introduce them though, and there's no way this female's been bred yet, I'd say leave them in for a while. Sometimes the females calm down. I'll tell you what, I'd rather see a frantic female than one that's just trying to cannibalize his ass nonstop. Those females are annoying. I don't get many like that, but there are some that have a really strong appetite. So, but yeah, if she remains frantic for a while, that means, yeah, she's not ready. It's a variation of not being receptive. So, and I've had females not be receptive and they just lay there. So there's like a bunch of different things. It's like hognoses, they're easy to breed, but there are things to learn that will improve your overall stats and success rate by at least like 10, 20, maybe even 30% in some cases, learning all these little things. Because when you start doing all the things like, organizing the stuff, listening to what these hognoses are telling you, because that's what I always tell you, my best mentor is my Western hognose snakes, because everything they do is a form of communication of them telling you what they like or don't like. You raise them really fast and the female gets all egg bound and she's all fucked up now. She doesn't like that. And it's commonly happening with hognoses like that. And that's not at all how they grow in the wild. and they don't eat nowhere near as much of a rich diet like that in the wild. It's kind of common sense once you realize it, but they're also telling you something like, hey, it's not good to over, feed me. It's kind of like if you have your dog. Like imagine you fed your dog just treats and whatever it wanted constantly all day. Your dog's probably gonna get fat. Sometimes not. Like we had this dog Abby. She never got fat. She was allowed to eat everything. She's like the best dog. She lived till she was like 17. She was great. Wish she was here, but she's unfortunately not. Downside of pet ownership. Does a darker high melanin axanthic stay dark as they age, or do they fade out? How does that come through with combos versus like gray axanthic? Okay, pretty interesting question, Holly. I like that. That's a cool topic. What you're seeing there is some polygenic interaction with a recessive trait. So if you remove the axanthic gene there, it'd probably be an overall darker or higher contrast, bolder hognose snake. And, or it might be like a hognose that doesn't have a lot of pigmentation. It'd be like more of like a gray base kind of wild type. And so, yeah. And some of these lighter ones, they might have like red phase in them or something like that. Like I don't know if anybody remembers those like the axanthics that popped up in that New York lineage. Those were a lot lighter and they're like pastel-y. And there wasn't the RBE pastel. That's polygenic anyway, by the way. But his axanthics, if you looked at his hets, they were like really nice, like red phase. They're kind of like a cherry red. They were very pretty. And so, yeah, those polygenic influences have some interaction. But hognose, like a lot of people hear, like the polygenics change a lot over time with age. When it comes to these like certain recessive traits, if you have a dark axanthic, it's going to stay dark for the most part. If it's like a few months old, it's had a couple shed cycles, it's going to stay like that. Yeah, Liam here. Yeah, thanks for joining. Bust out the black light for the sperm stains. You can a lot of times see them, Travis. You can see them on their backs. You can see it like dried. Black light, it would help highlight it a bunch. Actually, that's actually a very good one Travis just did or stated. And he was like joking, but that would actually work. If you're a hognose locked, even if the male didn't really deposit sperm on her or get any on himself, juices do run out when they're locked together. So if you lift up her tail, put a black light on it, do it before and after, guaranteed that would work. That's a pretty good one, Travis. That's awesome. How do you snap your too young to breed horny hogs out of mating mode? Brumation didn't work. Yeah. They're too horny to breed. Is that what I'm reading? All right, that's Hannah. How do you snap your too young to breed horny hogs out of mating mode? Brumation didn't work. Well, don't pair them together. That's all. Just don't pair them together. If I understand the question, if I'm reading right. Lake Macau. Yeah, that's the lake, Jessica. That's it. That's the spot. 2 hours west. That's a great spot. I fed the males first time. Yeah, it's Trinity. Just wait till he's digested a meal, and then you compare them. Herping Harbins and Hannah donated. Thank you. That's going to USARK. Blue Tongue Republic's here. Enchanted Hogs. Have you ever bred your color blast to a super Arctic sable? I have not. Super Arctic kind of nerfs polygenics mostly, so it's not one I'm going to actively pursue. I am putting some red stuff in the Super Arctics. Is it going to change it a bit? I think so, but Super Arctic does a really good job of mutating earthrophores. So I really think it allows and disallows, certain red pigments, and it doesn't seem like the polygenic reds really pass through. And that could be due to the type of reds that are selectively line bred hognose have. We're selectively line breeding, and we're just seeing the phenotype. But the genotype might be we're changing reds on certain upper dermal pigmentation, while the Super Arctic might be completely eliminating certain upper dermal pigmentation, but allowing other earthrophores through, or it's just allowing a certain amount through. That's a bit of a variable, and these polygenics aren't really interacting with it. So that's the thing. Sometimes it's funny because I'll get into mindset sometimes, and this is where you get schooled. This is where you get learned by your hognose snakes, and then genetics. Like Super Arctic's very hard to change. Like some people are making lemon go Super Arctics, and they asked like my opinion before anybody even made it. I was like, that ain't going to change Super Arctic. If it does, it's going to be so minuscule you're not even going to be able to tell, or barely tell. And I could be wrong, but I like to try to interpret these things and guess. And I like to make, and then if I feel strongly based on past knowledge and experience, I'm going to say it. And so I was like, it's highly unlikely it's going to do anything. And same with reds. But certain other polygenics can surprise you, like such as lemon ghost really interacting, especially Momo lemon ghost interacting with Conda. So that's an incomplete dominant that's really being manipulated and reacting with a polygenic. So don't underestimate polygenics and what they can do. Sometimes I have, and I got schooled and learned. Like Lemon Ghost condas, I don't think they're going to be that drastic, but Lemon Ghost really influences Anaconda quite a bit. Yeah, Lori. Yeah, Lori says you'd like to donate on USARK's site and you get a shirt. Yeah, you can go to USARK and you can actually become a member, and then you can get stickers, you can get shirts. A lot of your big expos have USARK sponsors there. Sometimes Phil's even at them. I think he'll be at the Phoenix Expo. The Phoenix Expo is next month. So I'll actually be at the Phoenix Expo. There's Hillsboro, Oregon, Sacramento, California. I'll also be going to that one. And then there's the Reptile Talks. The Reptile Talks is like, I think it's May 17th and 18th, or it's 18th and 19th. And I will be a speaker there. Let me look at it. I have the pamphlet. Reptile Talks. May 17th through 19th. So it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I will be vending. It's going to be an interesting one. There's going to be some actual herpetologists there. I don't have a degree in herpetology, but I'm going to be a speaker for Western Hognose snakes at this symposium, and there's going to be other speakers there. And then I will be presenting a new Hognose morph there, and the first release is going to be at the Reptile Talks in person. That's in Anaheim, California, May 17th, 18th, and 19th. And I'll be talking about Hognose snakes, and there's going to be a bunch of other cool people there. But yeah, USARK, going right to their website to donate is fantastic too. If you want to do that, please do so. And then, yeah, you can get a cool USARK shirt, help show support. All right. So we got, yeah, Hannah and Lori both agreeing they like moonbeams and moonstones. Not a breeder, but do you feel we chase the morphs too much or never enough? Am I being naive and thinking about it? Animals like crested geckos, etc. Yeah, to a degree. I mean, it's people definitely pursue that stuff pretty strongly. They want to see certain projects. And there's a competitiveness to it, too, in a lot of instances, especially when there's a lot of money involved. So, yeah. And there's people that do it more for fun and they're hobbyists, and they aren't as in a rush because they're not really, they're not doing it so much for the money. So, like, it depends. Like, I really like making the morphs. I really like genetics. So I'm always on the ball thinking about things I want to make or do. And that's part of the fun because, it keeps breeding these Hognose snakes very interesting versus just like, even if you just had normals, though, you could selectively line breed them. If there wasn't morphs, I'd just be doing locales and more polygenics. And I'd probably be more precise with locales. It would be cool to have certain locales really established in captivity. So especially for somebody's programs where they need stock to reintroduce into the wild to, there's a, can't remember, is in Minnesota. They're doing it for this one park where Hognose used to exist there, and they're reintroducing them. And I don't know if they're doing that great there, though. They really need to reintroduce a lot of prairie skinks. And I don't see them talk about that, but they need a strong population of prairie skinks there before they can release any Hognose. I think there are prairie skinks there, but I don't know how many are there. But I'm also not surveying the land, so I don't know. They probably already did all that. And Breezy, your 230-gram female gave you 24 eggs. See, that's a good example. Like a 230-gram female, still modest size. I have like 4 or 5-year-old breeder females that are much larger than 230 grams. Some females just kind of get pretty big, even if you are managing their diet. Now, I have 400-plus gram females that still make really good breeders, but they got that size very slowly, and I still do portion control feedings on them, and they're nice and kind of like on the lean side. They're not skinny, but they're lean. And they still breed very well. So can you get giant females that breed very well? Yes. 230 grams though, like 24, that's the thing. You don't need monster females. Funny thing is, I had a 450-gram female once. She got Gravid. So I bred her. She's a purple line extreme red head albino, and I remember I bred her to a lavender male. This was when lavenders were very expensive. And I thought this female was going to lay the biggest clutch. And you probably already know where this is going. And she was like one of my biggest females that year. And she swelled up massively. And, it's definitely, I was like expecting like a 20-plus egg some clutch. Well, all of her eggs were actually good. Perfect fertility. Guess how many she laid? I don't want to be, like, it's going to be, the guessing thing's annoying. It's 9. But they're huge eggs. She just laid 9. And this female was gigantic. Now, the babies were huge. So that's one big pro of those giant eggs. I really like the giant eggs. You get these big, big babies. And so, you know, some females just naturally throw smaller eggs. Of course, feeding them up and supplementing helps a lot, but some are still just going to produce those little eggs. TBM, that's Nick, Hognose for life. I agree. Hog bless. With double clutching being mentioned, how is it that hog market and price is still doing well? Not complaining one bit, but I've also been curious. Just that's a good question, Jessica. The answer is there in the hognose. They're the coolest species of pet snake, in my opinion. And for the longest time, when I was keeping and breeding hognose, I always wondered why these things weren't as popular, if not more popular, than ball pythons. Now, there's some aspects to it. There is a giant market overseas. And a lot of you will know what I'm referring to. Ball pythons are actually illegal there. So by default, hognose are actually the #1 most popular species. So you have large worldwide interest. Worldwide, you know, hognose are probably the most popular species of pet snake right now. The one thing I really like is that prices have stayed up. And it's not so much that it's like we make more money. It's not about that. It's like you don't see hognose turning into the Craigslist. There's, I got this one, it's $30, just giving it away. Don't like seeing that kind of stuff. That's my only gripe with the ball python market. And I don't even blame the breeders. I blame Africa's exports that still come out of there, and there are people importing them. Not so much saying blaming. I just wish they'd cut back on it. That would help the reptile community in general. I talked on the podcast, Hair Hollow with Dave, and we talked about that stuff. Really like Snakeful Grace, care guide on YouTube. Oh, there you got a good care guide, then that's pretty good. Minimum age for a female breeding, no matter what size. I call it the 20-month rule for males and females. If you want to have good, successful breeding, I won't even consider breeding them until they're 20 months old. Some people would think that's probably weird I said that for males, but let me qualify that. Males, once they hit 20 months, are very, very fertile. And you have a really high probability of that male being a fantastic breeder. Now, when it comes to females, though, 20 months is very young and not generally an age I'm going to breed them at. Usually it's more like 22, 23, 24 months at the youngest. When they look really good, I will breed them at that age. But I still call it, because like basically it's close to 20 months. So it's just easy to remember. I've had males that were big enough to breed. This is actually an interesting story, kind of. I got an anaconda back when I was like 23 years old. Is like when they first came out, there was like 9 available made that year. I got one for like 3,300 or 35. And, so I was raising him up and he grew really fast. And, at like a year of age, I tried pairing him and he had absolutely no interest. And I go to Daytona and these one guys had anaconda babies on their table. They had like 2 of them. I'm like, how do you have baby anacondas? And they go, our anaconda male bred. I'm like, he would have had to have bred it like 6 or 7 months old. And they're like, well, yeah, he did. And some males will. It's a low percent. And so I was immediately irritated. I'm like, son of a bitch. I was like, my males, they already have babies. My male back at home doesn't even want to breed. And, their male came from the same, season. It wasn't like it was much older. Well, that male, the following, it took him until he was about 22 months old. And the whole entire time, since he was like a year old, he was like 65, 70, 75 grams. And he didn't really grow too much beyond that. And so when he was like the next season, when he was about 22, 23 months old, he turned on and he bred like crazy. And I've seen that a few times. The males will look perfect. They'll have big, mature, thick tails. Usually when the tails get really filled out and they have that mature look, they're usually ready to breed. Usually. But I've seen males like that won't breed until their age catches up. And then some males will still breed. Like I've bred, can you breed males at 10 months, 11 months, 12 months, 13? Yes. Is their fertility rate as good? Sometimes it's okay. Are most of these males going to breed? No. If you're breeding, like trying to breed 10-month-old males, and I've seen it so many times, I've seen so many people try it. Let's say you get 20 females and you have like 10 males, and they're all like 9 and 10 months old, you're going to have a horrible breeding season. Guarantee it. You can try it. I mean, there's probably there is a probability, a very small one, that you somehow got all real young males that do want to breed, because let's say it's like a 20% chance. It's just like, it's odds. It's possible you get like, every single male, but it's extremely unlikely. And I'd say the male that's like 10 months old, 12 months old, let's just say 10, because as they get older, the probability goes up. At 10 months old, a male's probability of being a successful breeder is like, it's shit. It's not good. It's like 15%, I'd say, off the top of my head. If I thought about more, I could probably think. All right, this is Larry from Blue Tongue. Hey, Jeff, I have a few females that highlight food-driven like crazy. What do you think about throwing the male's shed in there first to see if it tries to eat it? Should I put? Well, I don't think those females, even be really aggressive feeders, are going to even care about the shed, because it's not moving and it's pretty much just going to smell like the enclosure. Is it impossible? Like, I don't think it's going to help much. Really, what's going to help is like feeding your female up a ton and just filling with food. If I have a female that's really crazy, I fill her up completely. And then you want to keep an eye on those females, especially while introducing a male. Like, if you have a really aggressive female, this works for most of them. And there are some where it just doesn't seem to work. But say if like Hognose is really hungry and it's trying to grab onto you, and it could be, let's say, another snake even. But let's say it's you, because this is a thing I've witnessed many times. I have this female Hognose trying to eat me, and I remove her. And as you remove her, you have to apply some force. And they do kind of sometimes realize that this prey isn't going to be able to be overpowered. And let's say, and a lot of times they try again. You keep like removing them. Usually after a few times, they get kind of like discouraged by it, and you can kind of see their disposition change. But you know, these hoggers are kind of hard to predict. And when we have them at these higher temperatures, they have these higher metabolic rates. They're extremely food motivated by movement, you know, and the way we keep them domestically. So sometimes, yeah, they can equate to these extremely aggressive feeder females. And one thing you can do is you can keep them at cooler temps and try to pair. If you have a specific female you know is already like that, try to pair her very soon. Their metabolic rate out of cool down is much lower versus warming up. Is that a 100% guaranteed? No, but it's going to increase your probability of her not wanting to eat the male. Feeding the female up until she's like really, really full. That works pretty good. Because the other thing is too, once they're really full, don't like as soon as you like get done throwing the male, wait till the next day. And a lot, you know what they do? Once they eat a lot and then they've had some time to stop, they rest. They're sleeping. Snakes sleep on average like a crazy amount, like 20 hours a day after they eat. Do you still have any of your coral corn snakes? That's my dad. See, a lot of people confuse my dad and I together. They think we're like kind of like pretty much the same person because we have the same exact name. I've never really kept corn snakes. I've only had a few of them. My dad's never even kept hognose snakes. So, and the funny thing is, I've kept corns a few times. I've actually never bred corn snakes. So all the corn snake stuff, that's all my dad. My dad doesn't know. My dad got rid of all of his corn snakes. The last ones, he sold most of his collection like 10, 12 years ago, and he kept back a few, and then he sold the last ones like 8 years ago. He wanted to pursue his art stuff and commit more time to traveling and doing that. So he actually sold off a lot of he sold off everything. And I didn't keep any. I almost did. I thought about it, but, you know, I'm really just so enamored with hognose snakes. And it would have kind of been cool to keep some corn snakes because it was my dad's stuff. And, yeah, I didn't. Because, like, somebody else ended up buying them as a friend. And I kind of thought about it, but I never did. So, anyway, yeah, corn snakes, it's all my dad. Hognose, all me. Leopard and fat tail geckos, that was dual. We did that together. I've heard PPA has fertility issues when combined with other morphs. Have you experienced this at all? Your fertility issues and the PPAs is going to be with the female visuals. Hets are fine and visual males are good. Do you still have okay. Hey, Jeff, you've mentioned before that certain lineages are notorious for being picky eaters. Would you mind sharing what types of combination can tend to impact? So if you have a lineage of babies that's, you know, and this is a good example of selective line breeding for, let's say, temperament, you know, like the disposition of the animal, you know, and then of course the physical features like the body structure and stuff. Yeah, if you like the leucistics, those leucistics originated from Colorado. They must have came from some real fucking ornery hognose because those are some of the most defensive, hardest to feed hognose I've ever had in my life. And they were harder than the shit I bred when I was in my early teens, and there was nobody telling you what to do. I didn't know anything compared to now, and I had to like kind of learn it along the way. The only thing people would tell you to do, this is like what would happen when I was like 13 and 14, and I was having baby hognose snakes, multiple clutches, and I was trying to get them to eat. People would be like, put a live pinky in a paper bag and put the snake in it. And somebody's like, put a bunch of pinkies in there because they said they crawl over the hognose, and the hognose gets mad and eats it. This is the advice I'm getting back then. Tuna juice, which was the only good advice, really. I mean, the live being in a bag, it would sometimes work, but the whole put a bunch in there, let it crawl all over them, that just sounds stupid as shit. Well, I'm sure, yeah, it would work a bit, it's just live prey moving around in there and stuff. And so, but anyway, it's just kind of funny. But the thing is, I had an easier time feeding those baby hognose, not even knowing what I was doing, compared to me in my 30s, working with hognose the majority of my life, trying to get this leucistic shit to eat. But once I outcrossed them into the super Arctic stuff, they're really good now. And it took a couple of generations. And this is how bad they are. Some of you guys probably know my friend Tim that helps feed stuff. Really good friend of mine. He works in animal rehabilitation. That's his main job, is helping rehabilitate native animals and then re-releasing them in these programs. But then Tim has like a couple of days off, and Tim doesn't really ever stop to do anything other than bird. So then Tim comes here and works. And so we're really good friends. And he'd help feed the leucistic stuff, and he'd be bitching so much about them. He'd be like, man, what the hell's wrong with these snakes? And so I told him, I kept back like a bunch of leucistic stuff. I really didn't. I told him, I was like, I'm gonna make about 2 racks for baby leucistic stuff every year. I was like, I'm gonna put you in charge of feeding them. He's like, fuck that. He goes, I'll quit, dude. I'm not doing that. And so, but now they're pretty good. And that's the thing. It's like outcrossing, got rid of one of these characteristics, not completely, but there is a clutch right over here. It's all Super Arctic Lucy stuff. So there's the Super Arctic Lucy twins. I'm sure you guys seen that. Some people here probably don't know who the hell I really am. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I got really good odds. The Super Arctic Lucy, Super Arctic Het Lucy. This one wants sardine. But see, if they don't have a notation, that means they feed every single time. Because I don't care. If a hognose feeds every time, I don't need to notate it. Because it's like, this is a good feeder hognose. Like, it's feeding every single time. They only get labels when they miss a meal. And if they need a specific thing, that's when I'm going to label them. Because I don't want all of this noise all around. Some people are, do you have feeding charts? I'm like, nah, the thing eats really good. Feeding charts, can they be helpful? Maybe. In my opinion, if they're really good feeders, for all my years of doing this, it's not helpful to me. There's a whole clutch. Actually, there isn't one bad feeder in here. There's just one that needed sardine scent. That's it. And that one's actually, because it only got 1 tag, that's a recent one. That thing probably didn't really need sardine. I'm sure it's off of it now. I bet next feeding I go in there, probably doesn't even need it. And so that's one whole clutch from that. And that's a result of outcrossing this horrible, lineage. And now the other problem is that some of my toxic stuff's bad feeders. But the funny thing is their grandparents were great feeders. Hello, first time here. I want to learn more about hognoses. All right, that's Pet Sos. Glad you're here. And Color Blast times LG Woma. Ooh, that's like a secret one. You weren't supposed to talk about that. I don't even think I told you. Yeah, it's Breeze's out. I didn't even tell her that. She just guessed. That's a good one because I already did it. The double hets are actually right there. They look really good. I probably won't show them because they're not going to show real good on the camera, but they look wild. The results were very impressive because they're like 2 completely different, almost opposing polygenics, and the results were really, really good. Oh, I see MJ's back there. So MJ kind of he's sitting back there. He's not in it. He's not in it, but he's okay. Jungle John told me So Jungle John's got some really good input there. Trinity, 22 months is like, and that's the thing, is like right around like 2 years. If the female's like 21, 22, 23 months and she looks really good, go ahead. Somebody's like, you told me I have street cred. Thank you. Can't wait for you to be back in Washington for the expo. I'm coming back in July. So I'll be there in July. I'll also be at the Reptile Talks, like I said, in the end of May. I don't know if I'll bring my go-kart there. The go-kart's probably going to get retired soon. It is fun, but that would actually been good stuff to get on camera. I had there's a lot of drama in Pomona Sunday. Rami's like, he goes, yeah, man, I don't care. Go ahead and drive that around. But the mall police there, or like these people that oversee the function, they were not happy. It's like, I told them it was a mobility cart because I have ulcerative colitis, and they didn't like that explanation. And then the guys cleaning up that PL up, that one dude flipped out on me and told me he's going to call the cops. He did ask me nicely. Well, it wasn't that nice, actually. He kept telling me to stop riding it. Well, one was a different guy anyway, but that's a different story. What do you think about introducing 2 males at once? Good one, Moonstone. That's especially if you have a male that doesn't show much interest in a female. definitely that can help stimulate breeding by getting 2 males in there. And I've had females that weren't receptive, and I've actually seen females skip years, even though they develop egg follicles, but they won't let the male lock. And when I first was telling some people about this, they thought I was crazy. And I know it's fact. I'm not going to go into reasons why, just trust me, because you don't want to hear me drone on for 10 minutes of why I know this is fact, but it's fucking fact. Some females aren't that receptive with certain males, or they're not being stimulated. And even though they're developing egg follicles, just don't allow a male to lock. And so if they don't lock and they develop egg follicles, and then they afterwards, what happens when they develop egg follicles? Consequently, they're going to ovulate. So the snakes ovulate without being bred, bunch of infertils. But the thing is, one way you can get those females to breed is introducing multiple males. So yeah, multiple males is very good. So if you morph your color blast with a Super Arctic Sable, what kind of mix would you get? Well, if you took a Super Arctic Sable to a color blast, let's say a color blast Super Conda, all your babies are going to be coming out Conda and Arctic, and they're all going to be het Sable and het albino, and they're going to be colorful. So they're going to be like basically look like nice purple extreme red line Arctic Condas, because color blast does derive from purple extreme red line and my own lineage of red phase. I don't really ever mention much, but all my purple line and extreme red stuff have 3 lineages of red. They have purple line from Dan Eby. Dan Eby, I have some new stuff from him that's kind of being incorporated into these newer generations. And then original purple line stuff, outcross purple line stuff, extreme reds, and then my own lineage of red. And what I do is I've been selecting the best ones I've been able to come across over the last 16, 18 years. My red phase lineage actually started when I was 15, and they came from wild caught lineage, Nebraska locale from Craig Trumbauer when I was 15 years old at Daytona. But yeah, that's kind of what they look like, Gabby. Is it a good combo? I think Super Arctic is going to nerf all of it. Now it's fine if you keep it with Arctic. Arctic doesn't nerf red phase that much. It does, but you can still get it to override. Like if you do a 4th or 5th generation, like purple line extreme red Arctic, it's going to look good. I've made them. What has kept you from mixing Arctic into LG more often? Again, Arctic kind of nerfs it. Is it a good project? Yeah. Polygenic is going to interact with Arctic very good and make it look cool. But it's something I would actually do pattern with it. I would do Woma. So I do Woma, LG, in the Arctic. Jeff, you've mentioned to me before that true hypo lineage are notorious for having picky eaters. Are there any other lines? No, the true hypo. My true hypo stuff. Some of the original stuff came from leucistics. That was the one, Liam. It was actually not the true hypo. I know exactly what you're talking about because I had the true hypo integrated with leucistic. Now my true hypo stuff that's related to the leucistic stuff, that was all again because of the leucistic. And are there any other lines or morphs that exhibit these behaviors? Do you know the reason why? Again, it just comes from the leucistics being like tightly, selectively line bred because people would make hets and then immediately breed them back in. And it was really obvious to see that even within the hets, because your het leucistics I'd have, they were like Colorado looking plain wild type hognose. You can see there was no polygenic influence. And a lot of people weren't outcrossing them too much. They'd make hets and then they'd breed their hets back to their Lucy. So it was a little too much of a breeding back into its own line. The line was diverse enough to avoid the effects of bad inbreeding. Because the one thing is we got to say there's bad inbreeding and normal inbreeding. Hognose naturally, a lot of other species do, inbreed in the wild, or what people would consider inbreeding. Inbreeding isn't bad unless you're getting negative effects or doing too much of it. And that's a spectrum to that. And some people might not agree, but that's just the way it is. That's why certain locales in certain areas and certain species can take more inbreeding than others can because they naturally evolved in that manner. And then do they have enough babies or there's enough genetic diversity in their offspring to take that? It's kind of like even like rodents. So you could start with one male and one female mouse. You can make an army of mice and they never become, inbred. I'm not going to make that a full blanket statement and say that for a fact, but a lot of people do that and don't have rodents that have issues. Now, if there's a genetic disorder, then yes, that can carry on. But as long as they're genetically healthy, you shouldn't see any problems. I've seen it with rats, mice. I started multiple mouse colonies with just a couple. Now, I'm anthropomorphizing a bit and comparing a rodent to a reptile, but it's kind of along the same lines. It's a decent analogy. You have a 600. Cleo's has a 680-gram female from T.G.I.C. She is massive, not obese. Her head is enormous. Former breeder for her. I'm just starting to pair her now. 680 grams if she's really long. Here's the thing though, hognose can be obese, or what I'd consider obese, without looking obese, because you can get the negative effects from very large females even if they are more streamlined, you know, like I've had big females before that are just gigantic, huge heads, huge bodies, gigantic, and they generally don't make as good breeders. Holly said, hit that like button. Well said, Holly. Really appreciate that. Could that be a line trait locale text? She looks like a different species. Okay. Well, no, like toffee stuff is pretty notorious for getting big. I have a Bub's Daddy female that's like very huge. She's long, and I keep her lean. If I fed her decently, she could be a lot bigger. And I've seen Steve with some other really big hognose. If I had to guess, Steve's got really good healthy stuff, but by some of his females, he feeds his stuff more than I feed mine. I agree. Hogs are definitely the superior species. Yeah, 680 grams though is very big, especially because if she was fed heavy and got like more weight on her, that'd probably be close to like an 800-gram hognose things, and yeah, that gets like in the upwards of those like massive ones. Like there's always a hognose that comes out like every decade, and everybody names it Hogzilla, and like everybody forgets and like Hogzilla. I'm like, there was like one 8 years ago somebody named Hogzilla. I said, this is like the third fucking time this has happened. I think the whole venomous thing and lack of knowledge is what scares some people. It definitely is, Joe. And I did one paper. I printed out this one paper, and this is from actually. I don't have like you can look it up. It's on shoot, what's that website? I just had it. Let me see if I can find it. It's like DX. It's basically it's a website for actual doctors and physicians. This is, you know, scientific approved research for, you know, being used for health purposes. And they actually, I'll read it right here. Western hognose snakes are rear fang snakes typically located in rocky, blah, 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 central United States. I know. Hognose snakes bites are uncommon. Okay, unless you got a hungry one. The pathophysiology of the reaction, that's meaning like the bite wound site, following hognose snake bite is not fully understood, but it is thought to be due to a type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. I was talking to Hip Hogs, Teresa, about this. She has a medical background, and I think she's still here. A hypersensitive reaction to secreting antigens rather than a direct effect of the venom. Studies looking at the oral secretion of Western hognose snakes have found little evidence of toxic substances such as protease activity, thrombin-like activity, this one's a hyaluronidase, and then calcrein-like activity. And those are components and proteins that are found in snake venom. Now, are hognose snakes venomous? Yes. But this is even saying that there was actually not many proteins at all found that would actually be considered venomous. What you're having a large reaction to is, you know, partially the venom, but all these foreign proteins that are going into your body. You know, that's why you get this, like, you get edema right away a lot of times if you get one of these swelling responses. And then people inaccurately compare it to like bee and wasp stings, which bee stings have a lot of this protein called melittin in it. And that causes a large histamine response. That's why some people can be very allergic to them and have, you know, need epinephrine because they go into, you know, anaphylaxis. And that's too much, your body's overproduced, you know, histamine in those cases. And the thing is, if you get chewed on by hognose, are you going to have some histamine release? Sure, definitely. If you get a human bite, your body's going to release histamine because there's foreign proteins going in there, and that's a natural response to your body. Is your body releasing a lot of histamine? No, I don't think so, because they did one study on eastern hognose snake venom, and now easterns, the platyrrhinos is different than Nassicus, but probably similar. It's the closest thing we have as far as a study like this. And this rat that was somehow given eastern hognose, I don't know how they did this, didn't specify, but they did notate there was some histamine response in it. So yeah, you're going to have a histamine response. Your body's going to like have edema, swell up. It's in response to the foreign proteins. I definitely say there are some hemotoxic-like qualities there because they do produce an anticoagulant. This is affecting your blood, and I have been chewed on and I've felt some warmth to it. But the crazy thing is like it doesn't even matter. The most important thing, as all followers of hog, everybody should support and when they're out there, should support this and get this information out, which is you remove hognose. Show everybody that's getting a hognose how to properly remove a hognose that mistakes you for food. As everybody here knows, or everybody should know, new people are here, it's fine that you don't know, but you're learning. You know, hognose take a while to get this venom into you. They have to chew on you. They have to secrete it. They have a very slow delivery system. And, you know, you got to be chewed on for quite a while to see these effects. Like some people probably noticed that one guy that posted recently. And this is from a Hognose chew on me for a minute. And I like knew it wasn't a minute because I remember when he posted it. And like he originally posted it. I couldn't find the original post. It was on Fauna Classifieds, I'm pretty sure. It's from like 2006 or 2007. And I remember him. I remember clearly. As soon as he said I knew that wasn't right. I remember him saying 5 minutes. So he let this Hognose chew on him for 5 minutes. And of course, he had a very bad reaction. If you let somebody gnaw on you or a dog chew on you for 5 minutes, putting, you know, saliva into you, you're going to have a nasty reaction to it. And the idea is it a, you know, a component of venom? Yeah, part of it for sure. How much of it? I can't say exactly. We don't actually know. There's no scientific research on that. But if you remove them promptly, like you have like plenty of time. You can remove them in 10 seconds and you're still fucking fine. It's like, how much more time do you need? Joe Schmo says, I think the whole venomous thing. Oh, that's why I just responded to. I'm going to get a female and hopefully not leave two again. Well, Gabby, that'd be cool if you picked up some more Hognose snakes. They are very addictive and they're very cute, and there's so many morphs. And if you only have a couple, it's very easy to have a few more. You're capped at 1, so I got to blind myself from the table. Oh, you're only capped at 1. You gotta do more. I'd get like 5. I'd get actually a lot more, as you can see, if it was me. What's too old for a male to breed? Like, probably when it's like dying of old age. I've bred 11 and 12-year-old males, but I didn't keep them any longer. I'm sure they would have bred till they're like 15, 18, but I retired them and sold them as pets. They were great breeders. A warm sardine said the Peaky is working for our stubborn Lucy. Good enchanted hogs. Yeah, this as these Lucy's, just outcross your Lucy stuff. You know, or make sure you're getting outcrossed ones. Like my Arctic and Super Arctic Lucy's this year, his first year I had good feeder Lucy's and didn't have much problem. That whole clutch did very well there. And the first clutch did good. That's the second clutch. So the live prey and paper bag is a corn snake thing. It works for me. Cleo's Kingdoms talked about that. I mentioned that earlier. Yeah, that's like the first thing I was like ever told. Like other than like, and people say to brain them, put ones in a bag with it. Trinity's going to get the black light for. Yeah, I would. That's a really good idea. That's Travis said. I think he's just joking, but he's like, he's probably half joking. That's actually an excellent idea. I left with a color blast and a sub. Yeah, Gabby. Yes, yeah, you have 2. You're not capped. Oh, you're capped at getting 1 more. Okay. I get more. Obviously, I just keep getting them. The paper bag thing worked for Nicholas. So I talk shit on the paper bags, and everybody's like, the paper bag's the best. How much time do you give your males between breeding multiple? I like to have them get a meal, hydrated in between the next pairing, and usually I do about like a 7-day break. 7-day break's very good. Yeah, Bree says she guessed that, so that's going back to the color blast times Momo. My toxic baby. Yeah, you've seen it. I've had you on some other ones, Bree. I remember I put some like things like, what would you read this Lemon Ghost to? And Bree would point out some really good stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to reshare that. That's too good of an. I'm already doing that one. It's a really good idea. I was like, don't want anybody to have all this like saying like everything. Oh, it's a good idea. I'm going to try to do that too. My toxic baby from you eats great. Hopefully it stays that way. Yeah, anytime I take a Hognose to sell, I always make sure they're good feeders. Every now and then I'll sell like a live feeder, but you know, I just notate it and make sure the person knows. You're gonna wait till the females are 2 though. Yeah, that's good. Waiting for mature females. I'll tell you what, if you wait till they're 3, they make even better breeders. But you know, 2.5 is like, it's pretty close. It's not that big. If it was like drastically better, like let's say you got like way more egg-bound females at 2 years versus 3, I would say it's unethical to even breed them then that young. But you know, the 3-year-old ones definitely do better. It's not like a whole lot better, but it's noticeably better. They definitely do good with time. But you know, I breed some females at 3. If they need 3 years, I give them 3 years, and that's if they're growing slowly or they just don't have that mature look, or they kind of look like a little fatty. I want to see them like not look pudgy. I'm gonna look like nice, strong, good body structures, wide anal plate, mature looking head, and you know, decent size. Okay. Oh, Brian saw the go-kart debacle at Pomona. Yeah, those guys came over and they were giving me like a big heart, like a heart. I already parked it. And you're gonna have to get it completely out of the building. I'm like, the thing goes like 12 miles an hour. It's like, you guys are acting like I'm like driving around like an actual go-kart. I mean, it's a go-kart. It's not. It's like barely. It's like it's a weird go-kart. It's 3 wheels. Doesn't even have 4 wheels. A GoPro for my go-kart. I do have a GoPro. I never thought about putting it on there though. Okay, Trinity, like that's from earlier. She's talking about pairing 2 males with females. She said I did have, so like, yeah, pairing 2 males with the females, a very good idea to get them stimulated breeding. You know, especially if it's like males of like similar genetics where it doesn't really matter if you knew which male bred. But you know, if you're checking your hogs often, you're gonna witness a lot of locks. And I like to witness the locks. As a lot of people here know, I call it lock hunting. So during the breeding season, that's all I'm doing. I'll even wake up in the middle of the night because I want to witness most of my locks. I witness probably about like 90% of them, sometimes more. Depends on how much of time I have and like how much effort I'm putting into it. Waking up constantly, not fun sometimes. Enchanted Hogs said they did the double male too, and it worked very good. It definitely is good to be male heavy. It's very stressful. I was just talking about that because a lot of people want to like time it, or you know, they want to kind of like mathematically invest, and it makes sense. People are going to do this with ball pythons and stuff. They're going to do it with all kinds of other stuff. Like, what's the bare minimum males I need to breed this many females? And I get it, but at the same time, it's very stressful not to have enough males, because that's been me some seasons. Like, you know, I have like 3 of this morph combo male, and I want to breed them, or like 2, and I want to breed them to all of these different females. And, you know, one male might not be a good breeder, or, you know, one could possibly even get like, you know, chewed on, and I have to give it like a, you know, longer break then. You know, a bunch of things can happen. So then it's very stressful when you don't have enough males. Yeah, type 1 hypersensitivity to, these foreign proteins. So, you know, again, it's funny because everybody's immediately thinking, this is venom doing this. And, you know, definitely a component of it is that. But again, just remove the hognose. If you know how to remove the hognose, it doesn't even matter, say, if they were 5 times more venomous. Because if you just remove them right away, their delivery system's so slow, you can just remove them without even having to worry about it. So it's like the perfect snake, as far as like a snake could be for like possibly envenomating you. But the only real bad ones is like if you let a hognose chew on you for like 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, that's pretty bad. Can you send a paper? Post a link. Bree asked that. That's in regards to the Eastern hognose, or this one is short. I printed it out. That's like the entire thing. There was some other side notes, but I think it was what's that website? It's for practitioners to access, to look at like, you know, published scientific information. And it was just updated. The hognose venom one was just updated this past November. So they made some update to it. And, you know, some of these studies might not be widely, you know, spread amongst herpetoculture, because like they did an Eastern, I've seen these one guys milking an Eastern hognose, and this was a few years ago. This was a while ago. And they were studying the component, like, you know, the properties, the proteins of Eastern hognose venom. And I was curious, and we asked about it, and they said, well, it was like, it was a privately funded thing, so they couldn't divulge information until that person wanted to. And I don't know what this person, that may have even involved that study that they put Eastern hognose venom into a rat. It might actually be that one, but so yeah, I could send that. I could try to find the one with the Eastern hognose. You know, I found it a few times. I can't remember where that one is even from, but that one's a good read. Oh, it's Brandon with T. Too lazy to change my name on YouTube. I'm glad you pointed that out. Someone at my table was saying holding one of my hognose and was his first venomous. And I was like, yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's like, that'd be like holding like a daddy long leg and be like, I'm holding a I mean, technically the daddy long leg is venomous. It's like, it's not like you're holding like a copperhead or anything. And a copperhead is like, of all the hot snakes, if I had to choose to get bit by like a hot snake, like an actual venomous snake, it'd be like a copperhead, because their venom's like not that bad, and you're got like a 99.9% chance you're going to be okay. So your probability is like really good, but that's like an actual hot bite. Western hognose is like, if you get bit and it starts chewing on you and then you pass out, or you just sit there for 10 minutes, yeah, it's going to be a bad time. Are you going to get messed up? Now, if you let 30 or 40 hognose chew on you simultaneously for multiple minutes, you could probably get really messed up. That would be a very bad idea. But again, it's like almost on purpose. So if hognose tongue flicks in your mouth, are you getting venom in your mouth? No. They're not leaking it, secreting it constantly. I have a multitude of health problems, including autoimmune, so it did have a big reaction to let him hang on too long bite. You did? Okay. I have some immune system problems too, and I actually react really badly to wasp stings. And wasp venom and bee venom are actually very different. It's actually very rare to be sensitive to both types of venom. And yeah, Hognose, if I let him chew on me for a while, yeah, I'll lump up, I'll swallow up. I get chewed on all the time. And even despite getting chewed on and sometimes even allowing it, if it does happen over many courses and stuff, hasn't done anything. As far as my reaction is still the same. You know, I've been chewed on like hundreds of times, and my reactions are still, if I let a Hognose chew on me for a good solid minute, yeah, I'll definitely puff up. I'll get quite a bit of edema. It itches and tingles so bad. That's the least favorite, or my least favorite part of it, is that shit. The itching is very irritating. A human bite's the worst bite. A human bite, well, see, a lot of times, like a mammalian bite like that, it's like the bacteria is probably more likely to cause like sepsis and stuff. The bacteria in a Hognose's mouth and like most snakes' mouths are like compatible with causing like septic reactions, and it can't be, because I've been bit so many times, and I've seen so many people that get bit hundreds of times and they never get infections. You know, I never get infections. I'll go out and find water snakes. I get bit like a ton of times by water snakes, garter snakes, Hognose. You know, I've been bit by pythons. I get bit all the time, and nothing's ever turned into an infection. I've been bit, and by leopard geckos too. If you add it all together, it might be even close to like 1,000. I'm sure it's not. Maybe it's definitely well over a few hundred. Yeah, nothing anaphylactic. Yeah, so anaphylaxis, you're going to have to get like a large histamine response. And with the Eastern Hognose venom, they found just a small histamine reaction. But again, anything foreign going in your body, you're going to have some histamine reaction. And even these people that have had these really bad Hognose reactions, you don't see them. It's all of it is like localized swelling, and then sometimes blistering in the severe cases, and then like itching and stuff like that. There's never respiration problems, not whatsoever. No, like, faint breathing. I'm sure some people's anxieties go up, and that could probably give like a false like effect for some people if somebody really panics. Some people panic when they get chewed on by these things, and it's like, don't let them chew on you if you're going to panic when your hand puffs up, and then get the rings to fuck off your hand. That's where you're going to get in trouble. I know somebody that had, actually two people that had rings cut off. The one girl was really bad because she waited very long, and she got the ring off, and she actually blistered because all the venom stayed in her finger, and it cut off her circulation. She showed me a picture before they cut off the ring. I told her, I was like, don't share that picture with anybody. That's bad. I was like, that looks terrible, because the thing is, taken out of the context, it looked horrible. It's like the only reason it looked like that is because you left your ring on for like 5 hours, and they didn't want to cut it off because they said the ring meant a lot. Their finger looked so fucked up. There's a blister, and then the blister broke after a few days. It was pretty gross. Zach Laughman about his Hognose project. I'd be very interested to see you two collaborate. I don't know that guy. If you want to get me in contact with him, I don't know. He might be interested in talking to me. Maybe he won't. I'd say somebody that'd be probably more interesting to talk to would be like Jeff LeClaire, because he studies Western Hognose in the wild and helps with radio tagging them and observing many localities. And he's been doing that for like, I think 15 years. So he would have some pretty cool input. There are things from like his studies and studies alike that they kind of like hypothesized, and I could definitely actually contribute information and confirm it, such as they found what appeared to be regurgitated eggshells, turtle eggshells near burrows Hognose snakes were going in and out of, and they found it like 3 times, but they couldn't really quite confirm it. But they says they basically kind of can, because of this coincidence that Hognose eat turtle eggs, and then there's a regurgitated looking stack of eggshells right by their some of these Hognose's burrow entrances that they frequent. Well, I've had many Hognose eat good clutches, and it's very common for them to regurgitate the eggshells just because they're a little harder to digest, and they're stacked up just the same. And so I'm like, yeah, and it's their eggs are very similar to turtle eggs. Turtle eggs, though, the shells are a lot more leathery and thicker and harder, so it makes sense that they're regurgitating them more often. But I've witnessed that in captive Western Hognose, so I can definitely confirm that. There are some other interesting studies I've read. One wasn't published. That one I was going to talk about, the reptile talks. That one has some information in it that I kind of always suspected, but nobody, and it doesn't completely confirm it, but it kind of it does. It's a very interesting one, and they were trying to find something else out. And I was reading it, and I was like, well, he's trying to find this out. I was like, I don't know what he's doing there. I was like, but this information here, I was like, is very useful, and it makes a lot of sense to me, and that's why we can do this with Hognose in captivity. And that made sense right away. And I'm going to be talking about that at the Reptile Talks. Actually, I want to get that guy's approval to reference him with his study in the wild regarding what he observed, because it is very, very interesting. And you know, because the one thing is a lot of people talk about their diet, and a lot of times I think what people think their diet is it's not off, but it's not like their diet, you know, I'll talk about it more later because that's a long one. But they, of course, eat a lot of turtle eggs and lizard eggs, you know, in the wild, and a lot of amphibians. But it goes a little further than that. But so we talk about the anaphylaxis. Autoimmune disease really make the reactions. Yeah. So I kind of have an autoimmune, but a lot of it's due to gut flora damage from taking too many antibiotics and getting fucked up from food poisoning. Food poisoning can really do a lot of terrible stuff to you. Yeah, but yeah, again, like more sensitive. Yeah, some people are going to be more sensitive to it. If everybody just tells everybody, when you're talking to people about hognose, show them how to remove a hognose. Tell them to do it right away. Don't wait a solid minute. It's like, yeah, like 30 seconds really to do it. I mean, 30 seconds, sometimes you can get in vet. You want to do it quicker than that. But, you know, 10, 15 seconds, that's plenty of time. And that's a lot of time to just sit there to let a snake chew on you. Super disabled females at Pure. Oh, yeah. Yes, you are the conda. Oh, yeah, it's right. You already, well, can you get one more? Nah, it's up to you. And again, like I had that auction going on Morph Market. Half the proceeds to the double het sable lab is half the proceeds are going to USARK, and all the super chat money today here is going to USARK as well. I'm also going to be donating to USARK again. So aside from the auction. And then Cleo's, yes, on multiple males. Yes, I sold a third string male, then my second string backup died and had to see. That's crazy. Yes, that's what I mean. It's very nice to have multiple males. Like, yeah, sometimes I don't even use all my males. Like I have some pure Woma LG males, and I don't even want to sell. Somebody wanted to buy one. I was like, nah, I don't even want to sell it. I was like, they're basically non-existent outside of the ones I have. There's other Woma LGs out there, but most of them are crosses. And these pures, even though some of my pures might not look like the craziest ones, they are perfectly banded. And when you cross them, good stuff happens because they're just so pure and they're so strong. When I got outcrossed them, and I got like 50% Womas from something that has no Woma in it. And but anyway, I have a bunch of these extra males, not really a bunch, but I have extras. I could sell one or two. And yeah, it's really good. Because when you have just like enough males, yeah, one might not be a good breeder. Something could happen. It's definitely, I mean, males are, of course, one of the most important parts of breeding them. You know, if you're lacking on males and you have very young males, you're going to have a bad time the majority of the breeding season. The opposite ends of the tub. Yeah, sometimes they're like that, though, and then just give them time. Update. It's the one place practitioners use. Okay, Hippogs. Arctic Swiss times Arctic Sable. I did do a Swiss times Sable, and I did not get many eggs. I had a Super Arctic Sable, and I bred that to a Swiss, and it was like 5.1. I'm like, oh, that's helpful. So I have 2.1 I kept from the clutch. Somebody is actually funny. They needed a male, and they don't know if they're het Swiss or they're het Sable male bred this female. And so then they were posset. And then I was showing them males I had available, and they're like, well, you wouldn't happen to have a double het Swiss Sable male, so then it would work whether these are posset Sable or posset Swiss. I was like, oh, actually, I do. And I have extra males. I forgot I even made those. And so, yeah, Sable Swiss, a lot of people here probably know Jules did make a double visual when he posted it. And it looks good. It definitely increased the melanin, you know, compounded it because Swiss, you know, is of course, you know, accelerates pigment production. And then Sable does the same thing. It also, you know, promotes other pigment cells too. But yeah, when you put them together, basically just that's compounding it. Yeah, copperheads are pretty. Yeah, that would be a hot. I wouldn't be too afraid. But again, they are still dangerous. The Boyga bike, yeah, Bree, I seen that. I was looking at your hand and like that one show, and I was thinking about asking, and then it finally got brought up. I was gonna be like, what the fuck bit you? And you're like, oh, it's a Boyga. Yeah, it looked pretty bad. You know, it's something like I said, my one friend, Dave, you know, Tramp Stamp, or Dave Levinson, that's his nickname, old nickname. Sorry. Anyway, he got nabbed by a copperhead in the shin, and at first he thought maybe it had been a cottonmouth, because it happened real quick, and then it went in a leaf litter, and they found it as a copperhead. And he just drank a lot of water and elevated his leg. His leg was really swollen and real tight looking for like 3 days. But yeah, I know other people have been bit by copperheads. They don't go to the hospital. But if they start having a bad reaction, like copperheads can kill you. People have gone into anaphylaxis, but copperheads are so common, and it's one of the more common like bites in the United States, or like accidentally, bites like on farms and stuff. And I hear a lot of stories of people's dogs getting bit in the face by copperheads, especially young calves getting bit on farms by copperheads in like southern Ohio and Kentucky. And none of these animals ever die. They say their faces balloon up like they got stung by a bunch of bees. Norm Dam, who's been in the herpetoculture and actually helped start the NOAA shows in Ohio. Some of the first reptile shows started in Ohio, actually. Excuse me. Yeah, the boiga. Yeah, I was pretty surprised because Bree told me, she's like, this swelling went all the way up her arm. It was a gnarly looking one. And I don't think it was on her very long. Bree can actually go into that more. Like, I can't remember. Was that a very quick bite, Bree, or did it like hang on to you for a bit? Can we see some effing around with beaded lizards? Maybe near the end. I'll probably go for like another 30, 40 minutes and try to keep this around 2 hours. I could actually walk around my building. Yeah, I could grab some beaded lizards. Yeah, wouldn't that be great if I got bit live? Now, about the beaded lizards, I do know, here's the thing. They can secrete it pretty quickly, and they can envenomate you very quickly. It's not like a hognose snake, but it does take some time. They don't have hollow fangs, so they got to kind of like chew it into you. And Steve Ainsley, I've talked about this to him like extensively. I had a scraper, like a plastic one, it's like a plastic putty knife, actually, jarrow knife. And I have it written up on it, so I know which side's the up part. So if I panic, but I was going to put it in the bottom jaw because they envenomate you from their bottom jaw and just pop it off if it ever did happen. Steve's like, no, it's going to take too long. He was just tear it off. And their head structure is like very thick. Their bones and their teeth are very thick, so you're not going to tear any of their teeth, but it will tear your flesh. So he's like, and he said, he's like, a laceration is better than envenomation. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. So if I ever get bit, basically just pop it off right away, and then put the lizard down, and then don't mess with them for a while. And you'll probably avoid most of the venom, and you're probably going to be okay. And you're not going to like vomit, piss, and shit yourself and like throw up and be in massive pain for an entire day and possibly have oxygen levels drop where you need to go to the hospital. So yeah, boiga. Yeah, I've heard about that. And then the Steven Cushy, because he is showing me some boiga when I was over there one time. And yeah, he said, they can actually envenomate you pretty quickly, from what I remember. He's like, yeah, it's not like a hog nose. He goes, because I've seen some people getting bit pretty quick, and they get the venom. So I don't know how their delivery is. I'd imagine, of course, they're not how faint they're secreting it. But they must like have it secreted and ready pretty quickly. They probably secrete it pretty quick, or just that pressure probably helps release it. I'd imagine their delivery system isn't that good, but I'm not an expert on boiga. That's just speculation. Bree's a boiga person, though, so she could actually bring up boiga stuff. I could actually have Bree on because I'm doing multiples of these. I need other guests. So and she has boiga. She has other species. She's diverse in that. I wanted to have Steve Ainsley on too, and a bunch of other people. But that's in the future. We'll see. So Gabby was talking about leaving with 2. We'll see what happens. 1's good enough, though. I want to probably get as many snakes, of course, as you're comfortable with. So I really hope I can make it to the reptile talks. It'd be fun. Will there be vendors, or is it all talks? No, there's vendors. I'll have animals there for sale, and I'm going to have hognose that I haven't released to the public yet. That will be there too. So I'm trying to get some people incentive to listen to me talking bullshit. And so it's just going to be a good time. And so it's going to be like a mini reptile show. Only people that are talking at the symposium are allowed to vend. So I'll bring I'm not going to bring a ton of hognose, but I'm going to bring some really unusual stuff, and then some probably lower end stuff and some mid range. I'll probably bring like 40 hognose, nothing like real super crazy, maybe 30. I'm not going to bring like 100 with me. And then, but I need some selection for people to choose from. And these other people, I don't know what they're bringing. But and then I know like Evan Stahl is going to be there, like one of the leading, herpetologists, veterinarians, in the whole world. And there's going to be some like other interesting people there. So what to do if hogs not hatch out by themselves? Sometimes they are dead directing the egg. They probably were going to die anyway. If they die, they're probably unhealthy. You could always pip eggs. Like the only time I'd pip a hognose egg is if the ones have already pipped, and I just tear them. I just pull up and I pull them open a little bit, and you're not messing with anything like that. The vascular system, that's when you see that surface vascular system, that's part of the system that's connected to the eggshell that helps bring in oxygen to the embryo and then also expels, carbon dioxide waste. And so if you like bust a little of those like vessels, that's fine. Even if it's a few days before hatching, it doesn't mess with them. But there isn't really much there's really anything you can do. You can pip hognose eggs. Do I do it sometimes? Every now and then, like when other ones are pipping. Is it necessary? No. If you do it enough, it could possibly save a baby here and there. Yeah, probably. But it's like a 1 in like probably a 500 or 1 in 1,000. It's not going to be very often. A lot of times these babies die. It isn't because they were unable to hatch unless you waterlog your eggs. If you give your hognose eggs too much water, they can drown in the egg. The egg just expands with too much water, and I don't even know exactly what happens. But what happens is a lot of the vascular system probably detaches, and it's not able to appropriately get oxygen to the embryo, or it's delaying its hatch for some reason. But I'd imagine it has more to do with it being deprived of oxygen and then not being ready to hatch, and so it just fades away and dies. That's actually very sad to think about a baby hognose, a little baby hognose fetus almost ready dying. So you made me think of that. You just killed my vibe, dude. Is it worth getting into true hypos with all the there is no controversy. There is one. I'll just say it. I don't care. I don't think Kevin will care either. I didn't even take it, bad. I didn't think it was a negative, but Kevin posted he's like, here's true hypo, and some people think this is polygenic. I was like, some people. I was like, that's me. I'm the only fucking person. I was like, there's one person. And so then we messaged back and forth, and he's like, oh, I didn't mean to make a dig at you. I know you weren't. I was like, it's fine. But I wouldn't say there's any controversy. It's polygenic. I've been working with genetics, or selectively line breeding stuff, and reading about genetics from the time I was like 12 years old. And I've created a lot of lineages. And so I'm not trying to brag. I'm just giving you some background that I know a lot about this stuff. If I wasn't confident in thinking it was polygenic, I wouldn't say it. I'm very confident in it's a polygenic. Now, polygenics do have this odd spectrum, and there are things I do not know about it. And I think there's a lot of things that aren't, completely discovered with polygenics, because it's like this, poly just means many, though. And it's affecting many alleles. So there's like so many different variations. There's so many different types of polygenics. And then some polygenics are stronger than others. But they're different than mutant genes. But I do believe that there is a spectrum, because it's like, well, there's mutant alleles, and then there's variations of normal alleles, and they can change slowly over time. But these ones aren't considered mutants. It's like there's got to be something in the middle. And I was going to bring that up in the reptile talks, but I think I only got like 45 minutes to an hour there. But I could talk later afterwards. I don't think. I took 10 days for my hand to go back to normal as a breed with the boiga bite. Was trying to enjoy Tinley. He got to enjoy it too. And that was cool. You're there for scientific purposes. Look at my arm and hand. This is what a boiga did. You already should have seen it a few days ago. I hope you got pictures of that. It was pretty neat to see. Because I told a couple other people, I was like, see Bree's hands, you got bit by a boiga. I was like, that's pretty impressive. But yeah, I think it's worth getting into true hypos, but just treat it like a polygenic, in my opinion. If you want to treat it like a recessive, but the thing is, it's the same thing as pistachio. And I've had true hypo, or what looks like true hypo, and is the same thing as true hypo. There's Enigma, smoke hypo, true hypo, and then a pistachio. There are variations of the same variation of what's called whatever, those lineages I just named. And I've had this true hypo or the smoke hypo and pistachio appearance pop up in so many random spots. I had it pop up in Posset Mercury stuff. That's also low chance Posset Swiss this year. So it's very easy to understand. These are very unrelated from my leucistic projects. I had it pop up in my purple extreme red stuff, which I was already selectively line breeding, which makes sense it would pop up there because it's very common for polygenic variations to pop up in a group you're already selectively line breeding. I've seen in the pistachio stuff, when you breed pistachio to pistachio, you get way higher expression ones. So Beaded gang, the need for bead. Yeah, fuck around. Yeah. It's like they're funny. Like some of these beadeds, like they don't have good eyesight, and once you pick them up, they do pretty good. So I could grab a couple. Took 30 seconds. Oh, so you had that one on you for a while, Bree. So Bree did get envenomated pretty hardcore there. It took about 30 seconds to get her off her finger, but fangs hit within the first couple. She was pissed. So that was a defense bite, and she was just hanging on to you. So that wasn't a feeding response. That's very interesting. Yeah, the bumps on their heads are part of the skull. They have their osteoderms. It means like they have calcium deposits in their actual scalation. Those like the tubercles, those bumps have like high concentration of calcium in it. And a lot of those the bumps on their heads actually bone. And all those bumps are to a degree bone. Stop cutting eggs for fun. Yeah, so that's Bree, stop cutting eggs for fun. Yeah, you know, that's the thing. If they're pipped already, is it really doing anything bad? It's just to tear it open a bit. No, now you're not really messing with it. And it's allowed to come out on its own. I like tearing way better than I like going with scissors or a razor blade. Is it necessary? No. If you ever think you waterlogged your eggs and your eggs are really expanded and one's already pipped, but see, that's like a novice thing. I had to pip eggs and it definitely helped. With ones when I was like 17 years old and I waterlogged this albino clutch. I may have been 18. And these eggs were so stupid and swollen with water. And I remember I was talking to somebody else that bred snakes and I told them what I did. And they're like, dude, I think you waterlogged those eggs. I was like, I described it. You're just super huge. I was like, they're sweating. I was like, and there's a soy. You made the soy. I was like, yeah, soy is a little too wet. And one was able to pip. And then but yeah, most of the time you don't even need to do it. You know, a lot of people are agreeing here with Bree. Again, if you do it, if you tear it, it's not messing with anything, but they have an egg tooth for a reason. Exactly. So it's completely unnecessary. I'm not advocating for it. I do say if you do it when other ones have pipped, especially if your eggs are at like a normal temperature and there's no fluctuations on one side or the other, that these other ones are close to hatching, pipping it isn't going to do anything, like tearing it a bit, but it is unnecessary. If you're using scissors, knife, or whatever, you're just messing stuff. And some people go in and they start pushing them and poking them around. That's even worse. Yeah, don't do it. Forgot about the albino true hypo super kind of male. He will go well with the female I was talking about. Yeah, Brandon. So that's the thing. He has an albino. It's like albino kind of, you know, covers up true hypo. So you can't really. I have some albino true hypo stuff. They look a little like different, but. Have you been interested in a skull face? I have skull face. It's a hognose morph, so you know it's my weakness. I paid dumb money for them. I was the only idiot to buy like a ton of them, I think. I didn't buy a ton either, so I bought more than two. Tiramisu and a gift bag to hide her. That's pretty. Yeah, the tiramisu. I love tiramisu, so yeah, I'd love to do another food review. You have an album of the bite from beginning to end, but I don't share it publicly. We don't have USARK, and I don't want. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, Bree. People look at this stuff as like a big negative. Yeah, and I understand that. That's kind of like what I said earlier about that one person that got chewed on by a hognose, and they didn't remove the ring for many. Like it was hours, and by the time they removed it, their finger was like purple because the circulation is getting cut off from the swelling, and so then all of that. Venom and foreign proteins were isolated in that spot, and she ended up getting a big blister there, and it ended up healing, and she's completely fine. But yeah, people look at that and say it looks bad. You know, there's that one guy saying, and he is saying dumb stuff like, "Should hognose be regulated?" I was gonna make a meme. I thought about so many memes. I was like, I don't really want to be on this like dude's radar as far as arguments though. But yeah, I wanted to do the one because he was saying should basically make an awareness for hognose venom, and it's like people should be made aware just not to let them chew on you. There should not be a warning label on hognose. The warning label, if there is, don't let one chew on you for a solid minute. It's like pretty much common sense shit. So it's poly. Yeah, pistachio is also poly. It is described as recessive, but it's poly. In my opinion and in my experience and what I've seen and witnessed. And a lot of times, if you look at this stuff when I looked at those, I was like, that's poly. Like when I seen the first true hypos, I was like, that's poly. And I didn't even work with them at that point. Just by their appearance, I could tell they were poly because they were those ones were not reddish. Those are more greenish, but they're like a line bred green phase. And, then I heard some people's breeding experiences with true hypos. At first I didn't even know what a true hypo even fucking looked like for the longest time. So, but yeah, I was going to make a meme with that dude that's saying maybe hognose should have a warning label. I was going to take a picture of Steve-O from Jackass. He did this thing where I guess he stapled his testicles to his thigh. And I was going to make that. I was going to put Joe Monahan saying, I said the dude's name, saying, I didn't want to, but I already did, saying that staplers should have a warning label on them. It's just don't let the fucking thing chew on you forever. Tell people, don't let them chew on you. That's it. Joe from Hognose sweating and breaking his Hognose, poking pens after just saying that to cut his Hognose egg. Yeah, that's usually the cutting of the Hognose eggs, or even the reptile eggs in general. It's done by like more impatient and like neurotic people. Like, I'm like, dude, don't cut him. He's like, well, what if something happens? And then one did die, and then he's trying to blame like somebody else. This is somebody different. We're not gonna mention names. This is somebody that's like, we don't know who this guy is. I don't even remember. He's like, oh, if I would have cut the egg more, the baby would have came out. I'm like, no, it wouldn't have. And I'm like, this is like your first year breeding hognose snakes. It's like, that's everybody, like, they're like, true hypo is recessive. And it's like, how long have you been working with polygenics? Like a few years? Okay, why do you think, I don't know what, like, what do you think I'm just like ego driven? Why do you think I'm saying this stuff? Because I just like, I'm an asshole? Like, why would I be saying this stuff? I wonder if, I think it's okay to swear. Yeah, it's okay to swear. I've done it like 100 times so far today. Somebody said later gator. I know where that came from. It's good timing. Can you describe what makes a woma, and what 75% yellow and ghost sign got proof? Yeah. So 75% is denoting, it's very close. It's not like 100% accurate. I'm going to have to make another video about, or I always say that dumb stuff. I'm going to make a video about that. I even hate shit I say sometimes. I'm like, come on. Well, say if you take a pure, it's basically like kind of like dog breeding is probably a close example. Let's say you take a lemon ghost that's a pure, it's 100%er. Well, when you outcross it, it's now cut in half. It's 50%. Now, if you take that 50%, breed it back to 100%, it's 75. So these percentages are very crucial and important to know without even having to ask the breeder roughly what steps they've taken. And I say roughly because some pures aren't exactly pures. Once a hognose, if it has the qualities of a very strong, good lemon ghost and it's back into the 90 percentile, I consider that a pure. Because, and that's why I want to go like make a video about it. Because the thing is, you can't keep them 100% pure forever. And these percentages are like a guideline so people can understand versus just saying lemon ghost outcross. Because there's lemon ghost outcrosses where somebody's like, well, how much is this worth because it's a lemon ghost outcross? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, how much more is it worth because it's got lemon ghost in it? I was like, in that case, like $10 because I can't see shit. It doesn't look good. And all of your babies don't have much expression. But then some other ones will have better expression. So those ones are definitely a little more valuable as far as keeping for breeders and stuff like that. So that is a cool painting. That's done by Avery Avezzi. She's an African fire skink breeder. She has some of the only axanthic fire skinks in the world. And yeah, she did that. That's her painting. It looks very good. And that's kind of what it looks so good. That's why I like having it in the room. And then we started like, because I have the other one, King Hog, the big painting, the big splash paint one in that room. So anytime we're talking about stuff, we say playing card room or paint room. It is a very cool painting. Wouldn't that look good on a sticker? I have the male albino true hypo super conda and a female conda het true hypo. But Jeff thinks true hypo, so she's just a little lower end true hypo. Yeah, and sometimes these true hypos, like I have some that you can even see the gradient. People are saying like, oh, I don't really see a spectrum. I have them with it. I have ones where it's like, it's very vague, but you can see it. And I have high expressions. Like I have some pistachios that are from pistachio to pistachio breeding, and they're like really good looking. Actually, I got them and like they're like really nice. And you know, somebody said the true hypos have that faded, like that gray look on the belly. And what I think it is, I actually think it's an iridophore disruption. That's what's actually making that faint look because it's like a cast over black. And I don't think it's like fading to black. I think it's an iridophore disruptor, which is a poly, which would actually, it's kind of interesting because that's new. And new stuff like that is interesting, but I could be wrong there. But I think it's the iridophores that are different that's causing that look. And then they said pistachio have mottled bellies because like you'll have like black patches and then that in shed kind of faded look. Well, my pistachio from pistachios don't have that mottled because they're high expression. Their whole bellies are like that, which is supposed to be a sign of true hypo. And these are for sure pistachios. I got them right from Philippe. He doesn't have true hypos. He just has pistachios. And he says pistachios are recessive too. I think that is incorrect. And if people don't agree with me, get them and start breeding them. Go ahead. Egg cutting is a Python thing. Yeah, egg cutting, like, yeah, he's like, it's almost like it's like the fucking mystery boxes. Like, what's in here? Also, I'm doing mystery boxes until April. I think a lot of people here know what those are. Basically, you get a snake that's 10 to 20%. Sorry, it's actually higher than that. Usually it's a snake that's like 20, 30% or even higher value than what you're buying. And you just give me an idea of what you're looking for. And you get the snake, and then you also get entered into a raffle. But I'm not going to go into it too much. I don't want it to turn into like promotions where like, I was joking with my one friend about that. So I thought I was going to bring up the auction, but I'm going to be donating half the money to that double hat lab stable pair to USARK. And then I'm also donating, and everything in the super chat here is getting donated to USARK as well. I wonder who made it. Yeah, Trinity already knew. A shirt for sure would be very cool with this. Yeah. I can't wait to have it on a shirt. And then we got more coming. Yeah, she is literally working. Yeah. So when you get a Hoggy from exactly. So my next run of stickers being sent out when they are done are going to be these. It should be done very soon. Avery's working on it right now. Actually, she was saying it's going to be done very, very soon. They kind of look different. You can see in their eyes if you stare real hard. Yeah, the mystery boxes, Jessica. And the thing is, they're good value. And I'm just doing it. It's a fun thing. It keeps things interesting. Yeah, I asked at Morph Market if I could advertise them. But right now, they're not doing grab bags or anything that's like a gimmick. I was like, I don't like to think of it as a gimmick. I was like, that kind of sounds like I got sales intentions in it. And it's like, but I think it's just really fun. I think it's cool. And so, and then, last time I raffled off one snake, and then I ended up raffling off two. So those snakes ended up going for, very, very cheap. It was mainly the raffled one. The raffled ones went for free because I just gave them away. The mystery boxes are fun, though, because I found another fun thing I wanted to do where I put a tab on it, and it's all white, and it says pull to reveal. So you have to pull it to see the genetics. And so that's kind of fun, I guess. It's like a Kinder Surprise, maybe. I don't know. I know there's these eggs. And you don't know what's in it. It's like Cracker Jack, maybe. I don't know. I've never had one. I've just heard of them. I don't even know what the surprise is. There's a toy in there, I guess. You don't know until you open up the chocolate. All right. We're coming on 2 hours. So if there's any last questions or anything like that, or any topics you guys want to bring up, this was my first podcast, and I am my own guest, but everybody here was really a guest because that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to kind of converse with everybody about any topic regarding reptiles, and I will be doing more in the future. I'll be hosting certain Fridays, and I will be having guests on. And so if anybody has any suggestions, anything you'd like to see, or people I'd like to cool to talk to, I'm open to suggestions. And so there's gonna be more of these, but this is gonna be the only one that is just me. So the next ones will have people. Maybe there'll be another one where it's just me. We'll see. You could ask questions for days. Yeah, the mystery boxes. Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Yeah, I think they're worth it. Nobody's been mad. I haven't. Nobody's gonna get screwed. I'm not gonna send you a mystery box and somebody gives me $2,000. They can be whatever amount of money. But you can't give me $500 and say I want a Swiss chocolate. It's not gonna happen. What you do is say you send me $1,000. You're like, I like Swiss chocolate stuff. You get a het probably. It's gonna be a little harder. You're not gonna get anything crazy. I'm not gonna give you $3,000 in Hognose. But let's say you the good thing is say if you send $800, that would for every $400 you get an entry into the raffle, and I raffle off a really cool Hognose. And then that's fun because I like to draw stuff. Actually, the box is gone. The box was still there, but then my mom seen me messing with it, and she goes, "Don't." She's all about boxes and stuff. And it's this really nice Christmas box that's really good for doing draws out of. What are your thoughts on soggy body or stubby or very loose skin on a hog? Sorry, I don't know the term for it. Yeah, that could be a result of minor physiological defect. It could be from overfeeding. It could be disease causing some atrophy. It could be a lack of muscle tone due to several reasons. Could be bacterial infection. Severe bacterial infections can manifest things as muscle deterioration and malaise. Just essentially just being almost atrophied. Yeah, I do bundle auctions. You can do whatever. People are how did it go? I feel you could send me $4,000, and somebody did. I was surprised, and it was actually more than that. And they're I want something cool like this in female. And I was all right. And I made sure they got something really good. I made sure that it was worth way more than what because, but I was joking because I was yeah, I could send them a $300 hog. The person would be super pissed, and I could be there's a life lesson for you, but I'm not gonna do that. I joking about it. It's funny. Joel Reap. I know Joel Reap. He would be an awesome person. I met him. I knew he was a friend of a friend, and I met him at Salt Lake, which I'll be at Salt Lake in May. And he was at Salt Lake again last May, and I went herping with him. He had his cat with him. We went herping with the cat and 2 other people I did not know, and it was a very fun time. Yeah, and Joel's really knowledgeable, and he has a bunch of different species and stuff. So he breeds ball pythons. He's into genetics, but he also has hognose snakes. He has a lot of kings. He has milks. He has locale stuff. And he has some pretty rare milk snakes, too. And he's very into the whole just herping and just Lamprepeltis, the whole genus of kings and milks. So he'd be a good one. See, I'm interesting for, I think, genetics, leopard geckos, fat tail geckos. I don't know much about beaded lizards. I can't even give any advice on them, and then hognose snakes. So I'm like very isolated. Do we message you about the mystery boxes? Yeah, message me. Just message me on like Instagram. I can't advertise them anymore. You're not allowed to sell reptiles on Instagram. I can't do it on Facebook. I can't do it on Morph Market. I can do it in my lives, and I can do it here, and like that's about it. And then I talk about them, and I should copy and paste what I say, but people ask me, and most of the time I just retype it out, and I send voice notes, and I'm like, this is how it works. And again, this is really good. Nobody's going to be disappointed unless you want to be disappointed and you just have it out for me, because I'm going to make sure you get something really, really nice. And, I'm going to, like, if you give me an idea of what you're looking for, you tell me, I want a male or female, I want like a snow project or a toxic project, and I'll worry, but if you send me like $200, I'll let you know ahead of time, like, hey man, I'll get you something cool for $200, but it's going to be like an albino male, like Snowburst or something, or Het Sable or something like that. It's not gonna be anything crazy. Or I got like a albino conda Het Snow male, so it's just got to be close ish. Sometimes the value retails is like 40% higher. The last one I just sent out was about 45% higher actually, but I had a few extras of those, so I did it. Any other reptile species you look forward to keeping? I like hognose too much. Just the beaded lizards, because they're so different, and it's not a snake. Like snakes, I do like. I like rhino rats. I love Barons racers. I do like boiga. I like elephant trunk snakes. Those things are goofy as shit. If those were easy to keep, and I think they were more of a beginner species, I would do elephant trunk snakes. If elephant trunk snakes were terrestrial and very easy to maintain, and were a species most people could keep, I would breed elephant trunk snakes for sure. I'd have a whole slew of them. But yeah, the only thing that I got real crazy about was beaded lizards. That got dumb really quick. I have 14 of them now, and I'm actually getting more. So I'm going to have enough breeding projects for a while. I wanted to make a walk-in indoor enclosure for them. And yeah, it's getting a little too much, because I'm like handling these things, and it's just ridiculous. When's the last chance to get a mystery box? Up until the end of April. And then I'm going to do the drawing at the very end of April or early May. I got 2 to 3 of my hognose snakes from. Thank you, Trista. I appreciate that. Yeah, we need to go herping again. Love herping. So 10 out of my $18 are from you. I appreciate that, Trinity. Trinity's a friend of mine. We talk pretty often. I want to buy one from. Yeah, if one time you're right, I'll buy one for you someday. It'd be a male. That's an example. That's a male. Yeah, I have 14. You've seen a rubber boa. That's a really good. Tentacled snakes, those are cool. I like elephant trunks way better than tentacled snakes. But I do like those. Those are pretty cool. There's so many other snakes. I really like shield nose cobras because they kind of resemble hognose a lot. But that's a major hot snake, so I have no interest in owning major hots. I do say, like, here's the thing. I have no interest in owning any major hots other than, like, beaded lizards. I don't even want Gila monsters, because Gilas are a little more attitude-y, and beadeds are easier to handle with their prehensile tail, and beadeds seem to calm down better from everything everybody else has told me. Now, beadeds, here's the problem. They're hots, but in Ohio, they're not considered a hot, and I don't consider them a hot either, or else I wouldn't be free handling them. But my thing is, if they bite me, I'm just tearing them off immediately. And if it happens, we'll see if I'm an idiot. I do know they are dangerous. Because I've read it. One guy that was like, he's in his early 40s, and it was on record. He was admitted to a hospital, and they said his oxygen levels dropped 50%. These things could put you into anaphylaxis for sure. they're not something you should mess around with too much. But they are a lizard species, and they are, you know, you can work with them, and you definitely have to be careful. Yeah, so like Western hognose snakes is by far my top favorite species reptile of all time. You know, elephant trunk snakes and beaded lizards, while I still really like them, there's nothing that comes close to a Western hognose. I mean, there is Mexican hognose and Southern hognose. Southern hognose are another top favorite. Easterns are the lowest on the totem pole for me because of their rostral scale, and their facial structure just doesn't do it for me that much. And they're tough to keep in captivity, and I don't think most people should have them. I think they're a little more advanced due to their natural feeding habits. Not saying people shouldn't own them. I think if you want to have them, just make sure, you know, I think it's more of a niche, you know, hobby, while Western hognose are more widely, should be made available to the general public because they make very good pets, while Easterns are definitely more expert level due to their feeding preferences. Unless somebody, you know, derives some feeding, you know, not schedule, but like a feeding plan for them, and then like an alternative diet that could be made widely available and accessible forever. And so it's a lot of commitment. You know, I mean, is it possible? Yeah, but I still, in Western hognose, I think they're so much cooler. I like everything about them. How they live in the wild, their ecosystem they come from, the degrees of commensalism that occur, such as them utilizing like burrows from other species that don't benefit from one another. That's what commensalism is. It's like when a species benefits from another one, but they don't like negatively interact with one another. And I think the Westerns, like even their diet, how they are in captivity, their range in the wild. They have fossils of these guys that are 10 million years old. These things are very just interesting. And I'm not saying Easterns aren't interesting. They're just not as interesting to me. That's it. I like Western hognose. Even like Mexican hognose are great too, but I don't even have any of those. It's just plains hognose. I'm a plain guy. The Westerns are quite amazing. I got the right chat here for this. What's your thoughts on the giant hognose? It's a big fucking hognose. There's my thoughts. They're fed a lot, and some hognoses just get big. Like a lot of toffee line stuff. You know, like I have a Bub's daddy that's like 400 some grams. That's a super arctic albino conda. I have a red albino conda female that's like absurd. She's like 500. And I've had toffee females I've sold just because they kept getting too big and they stopped breeding, and I was barely feeding them. I had this one toffee female. She's like 700 grams, and I'd feed her like every 3 weeks, and she's started making became a horrible breeder, so I sold her as a pet. Dragon scale snakes are very cool. They pretty much always die. Somebody had a T-positive albino, and that even died. And you got to keep them cool, and they're amphibian feeders. That's like super high expert level snake. That's very touchy. I'm sure there's a trick to it. Some things, though, you know, it takes a while to figure out the tricks. Some things may never be figured out. But dragon scale snakes, if those were easy to keep, yeah, that'd be another snake that I'd have. Like dragon scale snakes, like an elephant trunk. I like elephant trunk snakes, especially when they get big. Those things, vases, they're hilarious. Yeah, obese hog. The thing is, they can be what I consider obese, even though it's not within the realm of the right definition. I consider really big hognose generally obese because it does something to their body. A lot of these really big hognose, on average, don't make good breeders. And the reason they don't make good breeders is because they're oversized, and it's having negative effects on their reproductive abilities. So, you know, whether the snake looks obese, it's like it still has all the, you know, symptoms. Maybe not as much. Again, like a really big hognose that's lean and fed like more appropriately has a way higher chance of being a good breeder, especially if it's done gradually. That's the other thing too, is gradual. So if you have like a 700, 600 gram hognose and it took it like 8-10 years to get that big and is lean the whole time, it has a way better chance of having pretty good fertility versus one that was sped raised. Like I've seen people, here's my hognose I got from you. I remember I was like 15 years old and I was selling these really nice hognoses. One guy bought one from me. And I was very, because like my first year I was selling a lot of hognose. This guy came back 2 years later, and the thing was like 350, 380 grams, and it was like not even quite 2 years old. And the scales were all expanded, and he told me he was going to breed it. And I remember he said he was going to hybridize it. He had like an eastern or southern hognose he was going to breed it to, and nothing ever happened. I never heard from the guy again, and everything was a bad idea about the whole thing. Everything that the guy told me, it was all a terrible idea. Neat snakes and wolf snakes are incredibly adorable. I actually had wolf snakes for a short bit when I was 19. I want to say they were like South African. I don't really remember much because I was 19. I couldn't get them to eat, and I sold them to somebody that actually had worked with them before. But yeah, I had them, and I couldn't get them to eat. And I also had slug-eating snakes. I had Malaysian slug-eating snakes, and those things were really cool to watch eat. I thought I was real smart. I was like, oh, I can propagate these things. I was like, I'm just going to feed them cano snails, right? They didn't give a shit about these cano snails. They wouldn't touch them. They wouldn't take them from the tongs. I left them in bowls for them, like hanging in branches. Not a single one touched them. I got slugs and put them in there. Those things like lit up and they grabbed them and they gobbled them up really fast. And I didn't keep those very long either. Yeah, elephant trunk snakes can get pretty big. They can get up like 7 foot, I think. Maybe max at 8, but I know they can get at least 6, maybe 7 foot. If your hog doesn't feed, how long would you leave the mouse in there for it to take it out? You like a half a day. Once the mouse starts to spoil, take it out. But there's a lot of things you can do to get a hognose to feed. There's a lot of different approaches. So, yeah, find a way to keep them alive because I'm down to get some. Yeah, that's pretty much every species. You can find a way where somebody has like there's that Mike's monitors, and he has like Asian water monitors, and he has like a guide on how to do everything. And if you do it exactly like this, the thing's going to do well for you. And like certain species, of course, are really easy to keep. Actually, beaded lizards are like really easy to keep. These things they go into brumation in the wild, and they're really good at reserving fat stores, and these things are like very easy to keep, and they're majorly like nocturnal. They do come out sometimes, but yeah, they're like semi-fossorial. They go into burrows, and actually semi-arboreal too. They'll climb up in the trees and eat like birds' nest eggs, bird eggs and baby birds. Dragon snakes are incredibly boring. How are those boring? They're so cool looking. I did not get a tree monitor. Xenodermis are really cool. I don't recognize that genus. Madagascar giant hogs. Those are pretty cool. I used to want one when I was a little kid. Anymore, it's all Western hognose. Like, I just don't really get tired of them at all. It's not so much like, I'm not saying people get tired, but the people have interest in other species, and that's understandable. But I just have my interest just is mostly in these. And some beadeds. Once after these last beadeds, I'm done. I don't want like a bazillion of these things. I got enough. I got so damn many, it's insane. But you need quite a few to I would like to breed them. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Reed snakes and wolf snakks are incredibly adorable, but also poor in captivity. That's what breed I couldn't get mine to eat. So, hopefully the guy I sold them to, he had worked with them before, and he said he could probably get them eating. And they were being imported around that time for a short bit. And there's other weird stuff coming in. Like, again, that's the same time I was getting the Malaysian slug eaters, and then there's the blunt-headed slug eaters. I almost bought those, but then the guy wanted a bunch of money for them. And I'm like, that's a lot of money for a snake nobody's going to want to buy from me. And I was like, I gotta get these things slugs and stuff. And I was like, this is, the can of snail shit didn't go over. Clover's Reptiles, what did I miss out on? You missed the entire podcast, but it is recorded, so you can re-listen to me talking crap and talking about hognose snakes. But it's been very fun. It's just me conversing with other hognose people like me, and it's been some really fun topics. I think the Leo had it on Madagascar. No, I think it's keeping bees is like snakes, easy. They are, and they have a slow metabolism like a snake too. Everything he's on about. I thought about feeding slugs to the garter because they eat them in the wild. It seems too risky, though. Yeah, I mean, garters, you could feed them like, they eat worms and stuff, too. You could just feed them worms. I feel like a mouse diet for them is, like, kind of bad long-term because of the excessive, like, fatty nutrients from them. But I'm sure if you, portion controlled them, they'd probably do pretty okay. I've only kept albino checkered garters for a bit. And then, when you feed them fish, you got to make sure they're not fish that are high in thiamine, because if they get too much thiaminase and thiamine, I always get them mixed up. But essentially, they're not completely synonymous, but it's an enzyme. And what it can do is it can block vitamin B absorption. So if they're being fed fish high in thiamine or thiaminase, somebody can correct me here. Thiamine or thiaminase. They're both correct, but I'm using them. They're not supposed to be used interchangeably like this. But the one thing is, if you cook fish, it actually neutralizes the thiaminase. So then you can feed the fish to snakes that actually are high in thiamine levels if you cook them. So that's what I figured the 24-hour rule. Could you feed the unfed mouse to another hog? Not after 24 hours. It's going to be like junky. If it's like been a few hours, you can feed it to another one. Or I feed it like to my quarantine stuff. Like if I have some like we drop a mouse on the floor in here, I give it to like my quarantine milk snakes. Most likely, the mouse is fine. I have a very large collection. I've experienced diseases many times. I'm very knowledgeable. I actually on cryptosis, very knowledgeable because I've had a lot of experience in my quarantine sections with geckos with it. Observed it for a very long time, read papers on it while also working with it for over 12 years. And there's a lot of things out there that kind of get overlooked when talking about it. That's a very tricky parasite because here's the one thing. It's got the perfect name. It's cryptosis. So they call it that because it's cryptic. And a lot of people, you know, you want to put labels on it. Like, hey, it acts like this. And it's like, it can act like a lot of different stuff. It can act like nothing. Your animal can have it and it can be completely asymptomatic. You can actually have multiples. Also depends on the strain of cryptosis. Depends on the species. Each species of reptile, it behaves in them very similarly, but it does differentiate. Even fat-tailed geckos and leopard geckos, there's differences with fat-tailed geckos that have cryptosis and leopard geckos. And there's also differences in locales of cryptosis because fat-tails and leopards both have it in the wild. If you take fat-tails, so say from group A from Togo, and you put them with ones from, say, B from Ghana, you know, they actually will break out really bad because they're so far apart and you're mixing ones that have different strains of cryptosis. It's probably the same species. But there's also not a lot of, there's very little scientific research going into cryptosis. So like when people say, hey, I read this on Google, it's like there's very little scientific research because when it comes to Cryptosporidium, all of the studies go into parvum, which is the mammalian species. When it comes to reptiles, the grants are very limited. They are short funded and their main objective is to cure parvum. And I think that's fine and smart. Because if there's a cure for parvum, it should work for all species across the board of cryptosis. How many beads did you say? 14. I got 14 beads, unfortunately. Kind of dug myself in a hole there, but I do like them. And I've kept them temporarily, and you never see them. Very secretive, shy snakes. Xenodermis javanicus. I don't speak Latin, so there we go. Dragon snake. So there's a dragon. So okay, that's a Xenodermis is a dragon scale. Thank you, Bree. Bree, no, she has knowledge of a lot of species. Yeah, Alvaro, thanks for joining. Yeah, this has been a pretty fun chat. A lot of stuff. I think there's a lot of good information. I went on some pretty good long rants, and I compiled a lot of information very quickly. A lot of stuff is information a lot of people already know. We're just like kind of like recapping. Cleo's Kingdom was putting out a lot of good questions for content, just so we had something to talk about. So it's like, yeah, it's like even if you already know the answer, you know, you can chime in and say, hey, talk about this. And I already kind of did that. Yeah, Jessica. Yeah, I try to be like a little fun while having this. I don't want to be too straight the whole time. I don't want to be boring. Yeah, USARK. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, all the money today goes to USARK, and I'm also that I've already said it. That the snakes I'm auctioning, the pair of Dillette Lab Sables, I'm giving half the proceeds to USARK. I'm also donating to USARK. Aside from that, I mean, I'm always donating. If you're able to, yeah, USARK. You know, again, I talked about that early. It kind of took me a bit to get into the podcast because I'm like, this is weird, but it's kind of like just doing it live. So all I had to start doing was talking about Hognose snakes. What show expo I'm most excited for this year? Well, I'll talk about that. Actually, that's a good one because I double booked a show and I didn't tell the promoters yet because I was like, I can figure this out. So I got my friend looking like Andrew Foley. Andrew's from SG Reptiles. He just changed his name to Foley's Reptiles. He's a very good friend. He's like he's my best friend. And him and his girlfriend Kayla are probably going to vend Hillsborough for me, and I'm going to go to Phoenix. So I won't be in Hillsborough personally. I was thinking of doing something really stupid. I was going to do Phoenix with my girlfriend Crystal, and we're going to do that. And I was thinking about flying out Saturday night and then getting the Hillsborough Sunday so I could simultaneously vend two-day expos. But that just is really dumb, so I'm not going to do that. I mean, it sounds kind of funny, but it's kind of stupid because Crystal knows how to pack up stuff. And I know because I did the Phoenix show with her and I got violently sick when I was there. It was kind of funny because I was so sick. It was miserable. My spine hurt so bad. It had to be COVID. I had this gnarly headache and my spine felt horrible. It felt like it's getting compressed. Like I couldn't stand it. Well, I could. It just hurt. And so I ended up just laying on the floor and I was telling people to stay away from me because I started getting sick on the way to the show. I woke up feeling kind of funny. And then like an hour into the show, and I started getting more and more sick. And I kept telling everybody, I'm like, well, at least I'm not throwing up. And like, that's good. And then by the end of the show, I was violently throwing up really hard. And then one of the guys from Triple L, Renee, they said he started gagging because he heard me throwing up so hard and it was making him sick. And then Crystal had to pack up and I went to sleep under the table. And this other guy came up to me and I was like sweating. I was having this nasty fever and he was shaking me. He's like, hey, Jeff, he goes, I'd like to get some shirts from you. He's like, would you take 2 for $30? I'm like, yeah, dude, that's fine. And he like threw the money at me. And he's like, hey, Jeff, he's shaking. He's like, I hope you feel better. I'm like, yeah, dude. I was like, thanks, man. And yeah, it was a very weird experience. But I was so fucking sick. But Crystal was able to help pack up. So I was like, you know, she could pack up like Phoenix. And I could fly out and try to catch Hillsboro because I'd really like to be in Hillsboro. I want to be at 2 places at once, but I can't. And so I'm doing Sacramento. That's in earlier April. I think it was like April 6th, maybe. I don't know. You guys got Google. Sacramento's cool. Steve Ainsley will be there, so I'll probably hold a Beaded lizard again. I'm not taking the go-kart, but I'll probably try to hit the redwood forest because I like giant trees. Those giant trees are pretty cool. At first, I was talking shit. Man, they're not that big. And then I started hanging around them more. Well, the problem was I was with my dad, and he's never seen them before. I was like, man, these trees are pretty big. He goes, just wait, Junior. They get even bigger than that. And he kept saying it. I'm like, well, where's the fucking real big one then? And so we went and talked to the guy. He goes, those are the real big ones. I was like, I see, he told you. I was like, where would the giant ones be hiding? And then we went up to him. I'm like, yeah, these are pretty big. And then like the bark on them is pretty cool and gnarly. So yeah, you go to the redwood forest before anybody. If you like big trees and stuff that looks cool and unusual, go to the redwood forest. Check it out before you die. Make it a bucket list thing. Like I like trees. I'm not like crazy about them. I see ones that I like, tropical ones that they look cool, but redwoods, I like that a lot. And then it has all like the real touristy things, like that one's cut in half. Look, I'm tiny next to it. So it's got all that dumb shit. Daytona. Yeah, I'm coming to Daytona. I got sent in for that. I told him I was going, and I sure hope he reserved. And so I should be there. I should be there. Simon A's. Thanks, Bree. How do you know new morphs pop up random? Mutant. Yeah, you gotta wait for it to pop up. Have you experienced or heard of constantly overfeeding a hognose or feeding too big of a mice affecting, causing damage? Yeah, I have heard of somebody, they were feeding their hognose very large meals and they're showing me pictures of it and it was way overfed. And then they said it died. So I think it was caused by that. Like they got a hognose for me and, they kept other stuff. And so I thought, that this person would be fine with it. They kept like pythons and corn snakes, and the hognose was very small, and they fed it like a pinky rat. And I think it died from that. Very large meals, rupturing their stomach. I'd say it's highly, highly unlikely. Really, the overfeeding, of course, the negative factors from it, but overfeeding to the point where it causes a stomach rupture. I'm pretty sure I've witnessed it with that one dude, but the likeliness of it is extremely uncommon. Most likely, this thing's just going to regurgitate. Crows will eat the leftover. Crows are awesome. I have exasperatum and horridum. That's the only two. I'm not doing alvarezi. I'm not doing, Gila monsters. It's just horridum, exasperatum. That's it. I'm done. Reptile research is criminally underfunded. Exactly, Breed. These grants they get are very limited. So, some of these, biologists and, other people that are, and even like herpetologists I've talked to, a lot of them will say that, like, hey, certain stuff you can learn more about in captive collections that aren't relying on grants because your grants run out. And that's why I was talking to Dr. Grazik, who's a Hopkins University professor, and his professional, all of his PhDs and all of his research is actually cryptosporidium, mainly parvum, but he did do a grant with corn snakes and leopard geckos, but it only lasted like 13 months, I think. You can send me. I'll help you with your addiction. Yeah, Max, you'll be at Sacramento. I like Horridum a lot, and Horridum. Here's one thing I didn't know, and I just learned because I got Horridum just shipped in. They were my first ones. I did hold a 2-year-old Horridum once, and then I was like, so I got these Horridum, and I'm like, hey, these Horridum babies are way better than any exasperatum I ever seen. So I immediately called Steve. I was like, hey, are these Horridum like way more laid back and not as defensive as exasperatum? He goes, yeah. He goes, in general, yeah. I was like, son of a bitch. I was like, I would have probably bought mostly just Horridum if I knew that. But I still like the exasperatum, and they actually calmed down pretty good. I got I have this one exasperatum that wanted to bite the hell out of me, and it's pretty good now. That's the one that, if you've seen in my stories, I made a joke that is trying to grab the last cookie. It really wasn't trying to eat the last cookie, of course, but yeah, that one's calmed down quite a bit. That thing's come a long way. When I first got it in April last year, the thing was terrible. You couldn't even touch it, really. I mean, you could, but I'd have to wear like welding gloves. The thing was trying to bite nonstop. Now I can go in there, I can scoop it up, and it's pretty good. A lot of times I just kind of let them know you're there first. I'd imagine if you're going to get bit by them, it's going to be your first interaction, because as soon as they get used to you and you pick them up, they calm way down. I could actually grab one. What would you say is the shortest you've seen them lock and still have good babies? About an hour or two. I had ones lock once for 5 minutes, and they detached. And because I knew when I put them in, I'm like, oh, that's not good. And I made sure, and she got another lock. I don't think that would have worked. Yeah, Andrew got the name change. I believe he has. Yeah, that's Enchanted Hognose. I having COVID 4 times. Yeah, I had COVID. I got it, and then I got better for months, and I got it again, and I haven't gotten it since. I hope that never happens again. British Columbia owns all the big trees. Yeah, right. So what are they? What's that other big one? Are they Douglas firs? There's I can't remember. I know Douglas firs are a really giant one. If you said it, you would be telling me, but I can't remember it. There's the one guy who feeds hogs rabbits, which is probably not the best idea. Jeez. Banana Man's an exasperatum. Horridum, I got the super black, the high black ones. Yeah, you can feed them like a rabbit, like pink. But yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, I know. I've had them since I got my first ones in end of April. Mid-April, I think. Yeah, end of April. For bigger clutches, it's like, I got massive clutches. I don't feed them rabbits. I've incorporated rat pinks and pups into my diet, their Hognose diet a bit. Again, it's mostly portion control. The female that I actually had breed for me 12 consecutive years, the one that died at 17, I think she's probably the record for the most consecutive years of successful reproduction of a Western Hognose in captivity. 12 years, and she was actually raised on rat pinks mostly. But I did do portion control a lot with her, and not exactly purposely, because I was very young when I was doing it. I got her when I was 13. When I first bred her, I was 15 years old. So yeah, and she did very good, but she never got real big. She's also a defensive Hognose, so that helped a lot too, because she is more active. And and she really wouldn't let me overfeed her. I never really overfed Hognose though, even the whole time I had them. I never gotten, like, every time I got a Hognose, I have had Hognose over 3 foot. And every time I bought one of these really big monsters, I bought it as an adult like that when I was young and dumb and didn't know what I was doing. And I do have a couple real big ones over there, but they took a long time to get there. I think I only have like 2 Hognose over 3 foot. And they might not even be that. They're close. They might be 34 inches. I don't measure them. They're just big. Yeah. So I just feed 2 small mice. Yeah, when you're breeding, you can feed them a lot. Is a rabbit going to do anything real different? No, it's not going to be like a major difference. I mean, rabbits, what's the adult rabbit's diet going to be? It's not going to be like so much like lab chow. It's going to be more like types of like straw, and so I mean, it's probably fine. I don't think it's like, it's just weird. That's the thing, it's mostly an aesthetics problem. Like, somebody remember from my old Instagram, I get hate for this one, but it's like, it's funny, the people I even argued with about it, they proved my point in their argument. I fed one Hognose an octopus leg, and and it was lightly cooked, and people are like, cooking, there's controversy about that one. Actually, most of the people say if you give a Hognose or any snake cooked food, it's bad for them, because it doesn't mesh with the enzymes they naturally have to digest meals. That's untrue. I've actually fed Hognose cooked food many times, and they do extremely well with it. But I gave one like a steamed octopus leg, and that was ridiculous. And it's fine. And there's like people are talking like about it and stuff, but I'm like, And they're like, and so they're arguing with me, and they're like, well, yeah, all it is like mostly like protein. It's like, yeah, there's also, you know, minerals in it and vitamins. It's not just protein. And it's like, you just prove my point. It's like, it's within, like, it's like, should be a staple diet? No, not at all. It's just something. Hey, Joel, we were actually talking about you earlier, man. You'd be there, talk about somebody that'd be good to have on the podcast. Yeah, people say cooking is bad. I've done it many times. Cooked like hard-boiled eggs and some other cooked stuff for hognose. Raised them for a very long time. Even gave them stuff while they're gravid. They do extremely well with it. They digest it faster because it's broken down. That's all. Super spicy. That one you probably got the spiciest one, or probably, you know what? Probably the second spiciest one. Yeah, well, let me get a beaded lizard. Yeah, but see, a lot of those things too, when it comes to like feeding stuff, you know, there's this idea of like, you know, what looks good and what doesn't look good. A lot of it's aesthetics. Like, you know, feeding like smelt to a hognose, it's not necessary. Is it really bad or anything? No. You know, what is it? Silver sides. If you get true silver sides, they don't have this simonase in them. So you can. Why do people say cook the eggs good but don't cook the meat bad? Exactly, Bree. It's weird. You can feed them cooked meat. Should it be their staple diet? No. If you're mixing it with their whole prey diet, it doesn't seem to have any, like, you can't really see much positive or negative. It's just nutrients, and it's like good nutrients. But, you know, the thing is, chicken eggs composition is very similar to that of a reptile egg. So chicken eggs or even a balut would be very good to feed a hognose snake. Some people do chicks. I don't like the idea of chicks, though, at all, because they can have salmonella. And certain salmonella strains can fuck with reptiles. And then they could carry it and they could spread it to you. Certain people get salmonella, they get better. I've gotten salmonella a few times. It's bad. And now when I get it, it's like really bad. I'm like really susceptible to it for some reason. And people like, because when I get called, they always call you. If you have a positive test for salmonella, the health department calls you. Where were you eating and stuff? And so the doctors were like saying they thought I got it from my snakes. I'm like, no, I didn't. The first time I got it, I was in Japan. So I know I was eating some like questionable sushi. I didn't know it was questionable until I left. And my friend told me, he goes, man, we probably shouldn't have ate that. I'm going to get diarrhea later. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, why would we eat there? And I didn't even want to eat sushi that day. And anyhow, I told him, I was like, we can do it later. I was like, don't worry about it. And he insisted because you really wanted it. I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, but we're in a rush. I was like, I got to fly out in a few hours. But anyway, yeah, salmonella is bad. I was going to say something else, I think, but it's feed time. Yeah, it is. Feed only pre-workout. See, that's the thing. Like, and it's okay, like, explore a little bit, but yeah, don't get like too stupid or crazy. Like, you know, don't feed like your hognose like a chicken wing or something like that, or, you know, something like fried chicken. You know, then you should get some shit for that. This guy that was arguing with me too about the octopus, like, he had dogs and stuff, and he's feeding them kibble. I'm like, you know, that kibble has a bunch of fillers and corn and shit in it, and it's like, that's far worse for a dog. Well, dogs evolved. I think it evolved shit. People selectively line-bred wolves, dude. It's like, this guy, then he got mad at me, and I was like, and that guy completely lost the argument for sure, and I was completely correct that time. At least I thought so. Maybe. Let me get a beaded. All right, and this is one of the horridums. Oh, let me go there, right there. Normally, I don't like bringing stuff in this room because this is my main hognose room, and this is kind of like quarantine. But, you know, I'm wearing gloves, and I'm just kind of carrying this girl in here. And you see she's flicking her tongue. She's kind of curious. She is huffing at me a bit. Yeah, and this is a Hortum. This is one of the super blacks. Got some pretty cool color there. Once you kind of pick them up, they kind of calm down. Now, this girl I'm a little touchy with her because she is new. I've only had her for a few weeks, and she's not one that's like regularly picked up. But once they're kind of on your body, you're basically an object to them. And she's like flicking her tongue. She's taking in lots of information there. Like she's like really, very curious. And she's like taking all kinds of information. Licking the air, touching into her Jacobson's organ. You'll have to tell them how to get bit on both hands by a heloderma. Yeah, that sounds fucking horrible. Oh, yeah, I did hear that story. I need a recap on it. All right. And so I'm going to put her back. I don't want to just kind of sit here out here this whole entire time. But I mean, look how cute she is. And Banana Man's in cooldown, so I'm probably just going to leave him there. And this, the perfect time to pick her up. She's actually like inspecting her own shit. When I open it up, she just crapped. So, all right. Oh, Joel. The guy that got bit on both hands by was it a Gila monster? I bet it was a fucking Gila monster. See, that's like somebody's trying to tell me the Gilas, like everybody I talk to, the Gilas are like way more defensive, and you can't trust it. Every time I hear somebody getting bit, it's almost every time by a Gila. How much bigger is she versus the OGs from last year? Well, that one I showed you is like she's like almost stretched out. That Hortum I just showed you is almost 2 foot. Banana Man and his partner, I guess I'll call her that. Sounds dumb, but she's like those are exactly like 24 inches, and they're kind of like slow raised. Yeah, it was not a Beaded exactly. It's the fucking Gila monsters. I think Gilas are beautiful. I don't want one. I don't want it. Everybody gets bit by them. Somebody just died from one. It's because these Gilas are their venom's like very similar though. They're same genus. But yeah, way less people are getting bit by Beadeds. And you can see that Beaded's like not even really handled. And I was kind of doing the birders clutch on it. That's what Tim called it. Because I was holding it. He goes, that's how you hold like raptors and stuff. Was I holding that thing perfectly? If that thing wanted to bend really fast and do one of those strike bites, it probably would have bit me. So yeah, again, it is kind of stupid to hold them in some cases, but it's not as much like, because again, these Beadeds, once you get them out, you can kind of read their body language. Their tongues are really cool, and you can get the feel for them. I think they're pretty predictable, even though I don't have the experience yet to really say that, because I've only kept them for 10 months. But I've asked Steve. Steve though, Steve's fun. I want to have him on a podcast. He's pretty wild, and he has a lot of hots. He has stuff that's way more venomous than a Beaded. He has a lot of venomous snakes. But yeah, he's told me he's been bit by Beadeds actually a bunch of times. He's told me all kinds of stories of him getting bit by Beadeds. I talked about that earlier, Joel. He's like, dude, just tear him off. I told him, I was like, well, I got this putty knife that's plastic. I was going to put him in it and pop it off. He goes, don't do that. It's too much time, because they can venomate you pretty quickly. Just tear it off. He goes, get it, man. He goes, if it happens, you just tear it off. Banana Lady, yeah, but she's not that. No, Steve Angley. She's not that yellow. So maybe, I don't know if I can call her Banana Lady. Maybe I will, since it's she's his partner. Roy Engeloff told me that the story of the Outback Oasis when we were looking for Alterna. I don't know that I've ever laughed so hard. Okay, yeah, I'd like to hear that story. So that's in regards to somebody getting bit on both hands by a Gila monster. Yeah, that's the thing, Breeze. You forget snakes are not human children. Even these lizards, you know, it's like it's really them just like not recognizing you as a threat because you are becoming, part of their, repeated life. The reptiles are really good at pattern recognition, especially I'd say mostly with smell. As you can see, that she was going nuts with her tongue. When she's in there by herself, she's not doing that. It's because she's somewhere new and she's like, and it is the more she smells me and the more she has these same movements, she's not gonna have those same defenses. Although I've seen Fernando, which is like the oldest beaded lizard in captivity, Susie from Ship Your Reptiles showed me going in to pet him. She pet him and he did the whole huffed and pushed her hand with his head. I was like, oh, I'm surprised he did that. I wouldn't have expected that. See, that's the thing. I don't know. I would have thought he would have been super laid back because he's been around people so long and he's really big. But a lot of the beadeds are more likely to bluff strike you too. Like these beadeds, like most of the time, like they'll just push you with their head. They're a lot of them aren't that apt to bite. Now, when I got Banana Man and the lady with them, those would bite the crap out of my welding gloves. Like they kept biting them and hanging on to them, and you just see them like they put like pressure on them, and it's like doesn't even look like they're doing much. It looks like they're weak. I know they're not, but it's definitely. But anyway, and then you'd see the venom on the glove afterwards, and the Banana Man used to bite the heck out of my gloves, and now he's like pretty good. But like now he just does kind of more the bluff. He pushes me, but he's the exasperatum, or that's what Steve was telling me, and that's what I when I called him up, I was like, hey, man, these Hortum are like baby Hortum, like pretty laid back, and he's exasperated. I was like, and I was like, are these Hortum like way more laid? He's like, yeah, in general, which I talked about that earlier. I was like, damn, I was like, what, I got more Hortum. So that's what I'm getting more of is actually Hortum. Hognose snakes have Pac-Man frog, and they can, especially the strong feeders. And yeah, some people overcomplicate species. So Brandon was saying. And so was Steve Osborne the one that got bit? So I don't know if we have time for that story. Oh, here's the new comments. That sounds insane. Well, here's the thing, Joel. I told Steve, I was like, it could be like a saying. Like, those quotes like live, laugh, love, and you have them in cursive. I was like, that'd be a perfect saying. A laceration is better than envenomation. And let's have that hanging above your beaded lizards. Because their teeth are big, and if a big one bites you and you pull it, you're going to get lacerated. But you won't get envenomated, or you're going to get very little. Steve got bit by a big Alvarezi, and he has a scar on his hand. And he said, he goes, normally that thing, but that's the thing, he said he surprised him. He was in cooldown, and he just reached in, and he didn't let him know he was there. And he said he turned and bit him. He goes, it turned and bit him. He goes, I just went like this. And he goes, he yanked my hand that way. And he goes, it shredded my hand. And he goes, I probably needed stitches. He goes, but I just taped it up. And he goes, no, dude. And then he goes, other than the laceration, he goes, that hurt. He goes, it fucking bled a lot. He goes, but he goes, no, I didn't feel any venom. And he said, he had beadeds bite him before, and he goes, he just like flings them off and stuff. And he goes, yeah, I don't really get envenomated when that happens. You gotta get them off immediately. You got about a second. Because when they bite, I've watched them bite like my gloves and tongs. They'll bite and they'll hang on, and then you see them take their bottom jaw. It usually happens in about 2 to 3 seconds of them hanging on, and you can see them start pushing, and they start trying to pump it in and everything. And they're kind of like really slow about it. So like that's a problem with them. They just don't seem threatening, and especially it's hard to believe that these things are like dangerously venomous because of the way they are, and it's a lizard, So they can be taken lightly, which is what you are observing by watching me handle them. But yeah, so you just got to keep in your mind, But I also know that I'm responsible for my own behavior and stuff, and this isn't going to reflect. And it's also not like a venomous snake, Venomous snakes, I'd say free handling those. That's very different and can be a lot more dangerous. A beaded lizard, especially, it's a lot more manageable, controllable. You can read their body language. They seem to be pretty good at developing and understanding that you're not a threat, especially if they smell you repeatedly. They seem to really get it. And like even Banana Man, he used to try to bite me. He has not tried to bite. Like I'll even go in there purposely with my gloves sometimes and immediately just go to like touch him. And all you'll do now is just push me. And it's basically his reaction to me is the same reaction as when his lady walks on him and he's not expecting it. He goes and he pushes her, and they'll kind of huff at each other. And so he'll do it, but he has not tried biting me in a little bit. I still think it's like, it's getting better, but he still needs more work. I wouldn't free handle him, maybe. Maybe I one welding glove. How far apart should you test crypto in quarantine and how many times? Oh, geez. The podcast might go 50 hours if I don't test for cryptosis because those pieces, if I did, it would be a necropsy where they send it to a lab and they do a full intestinal flush and they take biopsies because you're going to know if it has it. For whatever reason, these PCR tests, I don't know why. I do know this. I'm certain of it. I've been observing people have very inaccurate results with it. You're going to get false negatives very often. So I act like all my new stuff that I get in has cryptosis. I always be like, maybe the beaded lizards, not so much, just because they're not known to have it. But I do consider them. That's why I was wearing gloves and like I'm not touching anything else. After I'm done with this, I'm taking a friggin' shower. You just want to be very, conscious of what you're touching and everything. So when I get new snakes in, they stay in forever quarantine. This is the only way to truly, completely avoid cryptosis. Now, if you test a lot, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying if you have especially a lot of snakes, it's not that accurate. And it could get, it's possible, especially if you're doing hundreds of snakes, there could be one that slips by eventually. Because I've seen snakes get tested 5 times, negative, 6 times, positive. And they just weren't shedding off oocysts. Maybe these PCR tests, because I don't know how they work. They're testing DNA. Maybe the PCR can only pick up actual cryptosis cell DNA. And, some of these stools might not have many cryptosis cells. Maybe it can't pick up the oocyst cells because the oocysts that come out in the stool are really thick shelled. So that DNA might not be, able to be permeated by these PCR tests because I don't know if they're doing anything to dissolve but see if there's anything to dissolve the oocyst and to break the shell open, that would probably mess with the integrity of the DNA. So I don't think they're doing that. So I think these PCR tests, this is just me guessing. This is just because it was like, well, how are these things not working well? They must be looking for cryptosis actual cells, and it's not picking up the oocysts because a lot of these stools should have oocysts, or sometimes these stools may not. Sometimes maybe they're not shedding off oocysts. Maybe oocysts do show up in the PCR test. Maybe they can see the DNA from them. I'm not sure. I don't know, but that's my thing. But I do know the cryptosis is fucking terrible, and if you've dealt with it as much as I have, you get learned a lot. You get schooled pretty good, and I learned at least 3 or 4 times. And the one thing I finally learned, and this is the thing that most people don't talk about, stop trying to put labels on it. That's my whole thing. Testing is a label because you're saying it's negative or positive, unless you look at it in the sense that like, I'm still going to think it's positive, even if it's negative, but it gives me a better feeling that, hey, maybe it doesn't have it. So I could see that. But if you have a bunch of hognose, another thing is hognose, I'm pretty certain that cryptosis in them is from captivity. I'm like certain of it. And it came from either corn snakes or like milk snakes. It came from a Lampropeltis or a Pantherophytes. And so hognose, in my opinion, from what I've observed and what I've heard like many times about people, because I remember people show me these wild lab results where it's showing like, well, I'm probably exaggerating. It's not that wild. But, well, it kind of was. They said that cryptosis colonized in the colon. I was like, cryptosis doesn't colonize in the colon. It colonizes in the upper small intestine, and mostly the stomach of snakes. And then they were saying it tested positive for 2 species of cryptosis. And it's like, well, are these tests confused? Is it a new species of cryptosis? Because the thing is, cryptosis in reptiles is underfunded, understudied, and there's a lot of species with it. There should be subspecies of cryptosis in reptiles. There most probably certainly is. There's just not enough studies doing it. And there's definitely lineages. There's different strengths. They can get different infection amounts. Their bodies can keep it in remission better. I think hognose are an imperfect host, and you're seeing more erratic results. So that's what when people first started telling me stuff, they're giving, here's a lab test. I'm like, that lab doesn't make any sense. It's colonizing the colon. I was like, this is like significant information because it's completely abnormal to what should be notated on a Cryptosporidium infection. I was like, is this lab interested in it, or this is just the results? So they should be very interested in this for scientific research. If this is what they're saying, colonizing the colon, and it has 2 species. But see, to them, that's probably not wild. It's like, oh, it's 2 species. I'm like, how are they simultaneously getting both the lizard and snake species of cryptosis? Doesn't make sense to me. Is it possible? Like somebody said, you could say like hypothetically, yes, but I don't think that's what it is. I think something else is going on. And then the results or even the symptoms hognose are having, where they're completely asymptomatic or crashing really bad, and then certain people's collections are doing okay with it, and they can pretty much breed and they're almost asymptomatic. And it's like, well, is it different strains, different strengths, low infection rates? Is it the way they're keeping them? And is it the Hognose building antibodies to it? It's very weird, and I think a lot of it culminates to them being an imperfect host, but it is able to, of course, live in them. And that's one thing. Another thing, again, is underestimating cryptosis. And I almost did it again because I was talking about, I was like, Rhacodactylus can't get it. I was like, but it's not impossible. And I've researched so many times. I've never had anybody show crested gecko. And then it's actually Susie Moon. She's like, this person has leopard or crested geckos. I was like, really? So I immediately watched it, and I was like, see, I was like, that's the thing. For the longest time, nobody ever reported Rhacodactylus with it. But now, with as many in captivity, probably getting re-exposed, is actually able to jump hosts. Because that's one thing Dr. Grazik would told me from Hopkins University. He goes, cryptosis can interchange a lot of species of reptiles. And it's like, and there's one thing too. I know with the way reptiles are treated and everything, and how the people do with quarantine, most species have a hard time getting it, or can't get it, or can't be affected by it. But then there are some species where you think they wouldn't get it. It is able to jump hosts. Because I asked them, I remember that my dad and I were asking him when I was young, and it was my dad's whole idea to call him, actually. I was very young at the time. I was like 15, 14, when the first time I experienced cryptosis, and is buying leopard geckos and fat-tail geckos with my dad, and having these problems. And my dad is something I've learned from him really well. Is like, he just goes and does shit. And he's like, I'm going to call this guy. He's a leading authority at Cryptosporidium. I was like, don't call him. I was like, he don't want to talk to us. And I kept telling him, and my dad called him. And here's this guy wanted to talk to us so bad. This guy was so interested and wanted all these updates and wanted us to call him all the fucking time. And he's like, and I thought he was a really cool guy, because he wasn't like one of those people who are like, oh, I have a degree. You know nothing. I have a degree. So it wasn't any gatekeeping stuff like that. He even said, he goes, you can learn more about cryptosis than I can. He goes, my grants are limited. And he wanted it. And when he had this, he's the first person to conduct the study where he is given bovine colostrum, hyperimmune bovine colostrum. So the cow's first milk. And these cows had antibodies for Cryptosporidium, and they're given this colostrum with Cryptosporidium antibodies. So this was a mom cow that was infected with Cryptosporidium parvum. And they're giving that colostrum to leopard geckos and corn snakes, and it had very positive effects. But getting colostrum that has antibodies for Cryptosporidium is very hard. But you could say some cows probably, because cows actually get Cryptosporidium a lot. That's where Cryptosporidium parvum is found a lot in, is in livestock, and that's how humans can get it and stuff. So, but I could go on and more on that. That was Terry Vandervet who got bitten. I love that. Those are good words to be live, laugh, love. Yeah. A laceration is better than an envenomation. But see, that's the thing with like a beaded is like, the other thing is too, like a beaded lizard, like, this is how you're going to get bit. My fault. Me going in there and touching it, like, see, like a vibrator or cobra, or like these things can strike. They have a much larger strike radius. And, free handling those is like, that's a whole different thing. It's like, I would never, I'm not going to free handle a cobra. The worst one I would ever think is a mamba. I think a mamba would terrify the fuck out of me. It's like, those things are very neurotic. They have a very large zone for what is their kind of like personal space, if we want to call it that. There's a lot of like venomous that, you shouldn't free handle. Beaded lizards, though, I don't know. If you're me, okay. PCR testing, regurg, not feces. Oh, that's interesting, Cleo. That's actually very interesting, because, there would be more crypto cells on there. See, and that would be synonymous. What I was thinking was, like, a lot of the crypto cells are going to remain in the body, and they're not getting passed off in the waste so much. The oocysts do, though, because the Cryptosporidium has, they lay oocysts, the spores that are thin-shelled that re-rupture inside the animal and reinfect it. And then they have the thick-shelled oocysts that get passed in the stool that can get reinfected to another host. It's such a bastard parasite. I wish there was an enlargement ray where you can enlarge Cryptosporidium to like this big, and then you could give it sentience just so you could torture it and beat it to death. I hate that shit so fucking much. Yeah, I think the DNA, it's got to be protected. So that's the thing. It's called cryptic. It's cryptic as hell. And then people try to put these labels on it. So that's why I do perma-quarantine, so mites, goddamn. Don't use any permethrin or any, Black Knight. The other one. the other one, what is it? The Prevenamite. Those are very hazardous to hognose. Yeah. The funny thing is, Nix has permethrin in it, but I've used Nix. I've never had problems with it. But you can use mineral oil. You can wash them with soapy water. Mice don't really seem to like it. They will go on hognose for sure, but they don't seem to really like them because hognose have pretty thick skin between their scales. If you ever know, but if they do get mites, I had mites on hognose. The last time I had mites on hognose was I was like 27, and they were actually pretty easy to get rid of. What I got was I got Nix soap. I mixed it with a gallon of water. I made a soapy solution, and we just like go like this over the hognose and like massage them so I get in between the scales. And we cleaned everything. We did that like once a week for like 3-4 weeks, and then later we just let the hognose like kind of air dry with it. And the thing is, though, now that I see that there's permethrin in it, I'd probably just do like mineral oil and just wash stuff really good and put 7 dust around the edges of your racks. 7 dust or diatomaceous earth. And you could get food-grade diatomaceous earth and put it right into your tubs with your hognose, too. But mites don't like that stuff. But see, it's not going to get all of the mites. But if you keep putting it in your tub and everything, and you wash, you just want to keep frequently washing stuff. The mites like to reproduce around water bowls or cracks and edges. But honestly, they were pretty easy to get rid of. Within like a month, they're gone, and I never re-got them again. And, in my past, when I got mites when I was like 13 and 14, they always seemed really hard to get rid of. But put the 7 dust on the floor and everything. 7 dust is like, some people think it's supposed to be cancer causing. A lot of these chemicals are, but 7 dust is mostly diatomaceous earth. You could just use diatomaceous earth. So just go and get that. Just use diatomaceous earth, the food grade stuff, and you can put it on your floor and stuff. It looks kind of crappy because you got powder on your floor, but who cares? Nothing ever looks like perfect anyway. But I think I'm done. We'll talk maybe a little bit. I think I'm done though. I agree. I can't believe anyone has ever purposely attempted to handle a mamba. Yeah, dude, free handling a mamba, you'd have to be stupid. Yeah, diatomaceous earth is overlooked. It's even good for, to ingest. It can actually kill worms and stuff. The biggest issue with the permethrin is aerosol. Incredibly toxic when inhaled by literally everything. Let's still include implied toxic. Interesting, Brees. I didn't know about that. It makes sense, like spraying it. It's like I give it, like some people are over here. I was like, yeah, clean this. We're going to use peroxide. And they put it in a spray bottle and they put it onto Ultra Mist. And I'm like, hey, that's not Febreze. I was like, that's peroxide. It's like, keep it low. I was like, we don't want to be breathing in game. My eyes, my hair is already golden from the small amount that gets in the air. I was like, let's keep it down. Keep it down. But this concludes the podcast. Support USARK. Thanks to MJ for allowing me to be a host and even thinking of me about being a host. Again, the sponsor is Rami, the Reptile Super Shows. Rami is such a cool guy. He's very personable. He's been running the Super Shows for a long time. He does a really good job promoting them. Those are very fun shows to attend. So if you are able to make it to the LA area, that's one of the best shows to check out. It's a lot of fun. I'd say it's like a must-hit show like Daytona and Tinley. If I had to pick the 3 big shows, the Japan show is cool too. I've been there like years ago. That's different though. But yeah, thanks everybody. I'll see you guys. And I just got to click end stream. Bye.